Hello, good evening, good day, everybody, and welcome to the 250th episode of the Ask Abhijit show. Incredible that we are here, episode 250. It's a long way. So it's all thanks to you that I have reached episode 250. Thanks to your viewership, thanks to your participation. So thank you all so very much for being on this journey. Uh, so let's see who all are there in the live chat. I'll greet you all. I can see Mr. Reactor Zone, Illuminati Creek, Shashank Kaushik, Event Countdown, Rajat Duhan, the World Teacher, uh, Geopolitical Dubey, Raju Jangra, Kumar Kaushik, Kumar Kanishk, Manoj C, Pratik Goyal, Sonu Bhargav, Anant Pai, Mr. 88ers, Animesh Paul, Ayushman Mathur, Prajwal, Gitu Parna, Sarma, Pamel Nandi, Arpita Shukla, Narendra Reddy, Tanshu Mehta, Mr. 88 is again, Anonymous Scientist, Info King, Sampriti Goswami, Rahul Lakshmanan, Unknown, Hitanshu again, Abhinav, Maklavin, hey, Ayush Yadav, Captain Price 451, Knock Knock, Avnish Mishra, Arkha Mana, Aizen, Shubham Jain, Pulkit Gupta, Aditya Singh, Aries Manticore, World Leaders, Arun Sahni, Maths Person, Tushar X, Chitan Aradhya, Palden, Tanai Chandra, Jeet Mitra, Aditya Komal, Janvi, Priyanka Javalia, Ashish Pandel, Rishabh Dang, Prabhav, Kripa, Prakhar S. Who else do we have? I can see Tanuj Sharma, Dhruv Dhuria, Biplab Datta, Shashank Singh, Shivadarshan S, Shashank Mr. Stanzin Dorje, Shashi Kiran, Mayur Malini, Shrikant Tupurani, Srivatsa, Kajoro Bitterthorn, Mohit Bhatt, with Amarjit Tirumal, RC, Mr. Jam, Rajendulkar, and so many other people. Thank you so much, all of you, for being on the live chat. So, once again, I'm going to take questions from the super chat. I will also, as far as possible, take questions from the regular chat as well. But I tried this experiment with the super chat last week, and I saw that it's a whole different quality of questions. All questions are serious, there is no fluff. So, I have decided to continue with the super chat experiment, and I'll answer as many of these super chat questions and other questions also, if possible, as many as I can. So before I get into that, it's almost 4 years since I started this journey of Ask Abhijit. I started the first episode of Ask Abhijit went live on the 2nd of June 2021. So it's gonna be day after tomorrow is gonna be the 4th anniversary of Ask Abhijit. So on the 2nd of June 2025, I'm starting something new. I'm starting geostrategy with Abhijit Chavda, and the first episode will go live on the 2nd of June. That's day after tomorrow at 8 p.m. It's going to be a 4 times a week thing, all live. It will be followed by Ask Abhijit. So you can expect a lot more content and very, very focused content on this channel going forward. That's coming up next week, Monday. I'll put up a whole schedule for the next week tomorrow. So I look forward to having you in that as well. Okay, let's get going with the questions. I can see this question by Mr. 88ers. Why didn't help PK? What's help PK? Pakistan become an economic giant like Japan, Deutschland, Korea? You mean US, I suppose. So they became giants, economic giants to counter USSR invasion in Afghanistan. Who's gonna win UCL tonight? Okay. Why didn't the US, I suppose, help Pakistan become an economic giant? Because, see, every country has a separate kind of utility. When you are the hegemon, the global hegemon, the superpower, you see different portions, different parts, different regions of the world through different lenses. And each region has a set of actors, geopolitical actors, and you assign a certain utility to each actor. So certain cultures may not be conducive to certain kinds of actions, and so on and so forth. So the Americans physically and militarily occupied Japan and Korea, and transformed those nations into economic powers and uh, and manufacturing powers and technological powers, and they leveraged that. They used that to further their hold on the world. Pakistan was seen through a different lens. For a long time, it was a nation which could, counterbalance India. Then, with the Afghanistan invasion on Christmas Day 20 in 1979, it acquired a whole different dimension. So it's because they saw the nation of Pakistan through a different lens, and they assigned a different kind of utility to the nation. So that's why Pakistan never became an economic giant; it became a terrorist giant, the world's greatest exporter of terrorism, the world's epicenter of terrorism. Who's going to win UCL tonight? I'm not really sure. I'm not really following it. I have not have the time to follow a lot of sports these days, unfortunately. I would love to, but don't get the time. Utkarsh says, all AI models are scary good. India's low, medium skill service jobs will be gone in 3 years. Even the West will be hit hard as 95% of service jobs will be replaced. How do we prepare for the future? It's going to be difficult, and the future is coming. I think, I don't know who it was, the head of one of the biggest, one of the large AI companies. I think it was Fiverr. The head of Fiverr, I think, said that everybody needs to prepare for mass layoffs and all that, because AI is going to take over most jobs. AI is getting good with agentic capabilities. AI can do stuff that you typically would have an intern or an entry level employee do. All that repetitive automated tasks, AI can take over now. It can do it. You can have multiple AI employees, agents, doing work for you that typically you would have human employees do. We are already at that stage. So AI is going to take away a lot of jobs, right? Certain sectors are going to be, it'll be hard for AI to intrude in those sectors. But overall, it's dangerous times for people who have been stuck in a certain niche or certain industry for a very long time, and who are very safe and who feel very safe and secure. Entire industries are going to be completely transformed. For example, the IT industry is going to be completely transformed by AI. It's going to be a very bad time for the Indian IT industry, for example, because so much of code can be taken care of by AI today. You can start a startup as a one man founder with nothing but AI tools, AI employees. If you understand IT, if you understand code, if you understand application design, if you know how to create formulate detailed requirements, detailed designs based on those requirements, then you can, if you have an understanding of the process, then you can have everything done by AI. If you have no idea and you think you can vibe code through the things, you will get nowhere. But if you have a good background, solid understanding, then a one person team can start a startup today with AI. So, all these, lots of these low and medium skill jobs, like Utkarsh is saying, are going to be wiped out by AI. It makes no sense to hire human employees. Okay, no economic sense. It makes no economic or strategic sense to hire 10 human employees, spend a lot of time training them, and then someday they'll fall sick, someday they will have a day off, sometimes their mood will not be great, some of them don't work very well. There's a lot of turnover. It's not hard, it's not easy to find good employees, very hard to find good employees. So there's going to be a turnover rate. Instead of that, you get a bunch of AI agents, 10 AI agents. And you also have to train those AI agents, no question about it. But once the training is done, it's done. Right? So a lot of these low and medium skill jobs are going to be replaced, especially in the fields of IT, in lots of other fields as well. Today, you don't need to, for example, if you are in video production, a lot of video editing can be done through AI automation. A lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. So it's only at the high end that human intervention is needed. All the basic stuff can be done by AI. That's where we are. And in 2-3 years, even that high end stuff will be done by AI, most likely. And it's not just India, it's the West that's going to be hit hard. Everyone's going to be hit hard. A lot of these service jobs which require low level human interaction will become redundant. AI can now make calls on behalf of you and act like a human person, and it sounds convincing, right? So AI can do a lot. What do we do to prepare for this future is the question Utkarsh is asking. You have to be, so what should the average person do who is in so and so industry? You have to very quickly adapt to this. You have to learn how to acquire new skills very rapidly. That's the only solution. You have to become AI native. You have to see the jobs that will exist in the future are that of managerial positions, managing teams of AI workers, that sort of thing. Yeah, so you're gonna have to learn how to adapt. You're going to have to learn how to acquire new skills rapidly. The most important skill today is to learn how to learn fast, learn new things fast. And people who refuse to learn are going to be left behind. I know a lot of people, especially older folks who are not, they're terrible with technology. They don't know how to use mobile phones, laptops, whatever. Those people, I'm sorry, if you don't adapt, then you're going to be left behind. So everybody is going to have to become conversant with technology, and the most important skill is how to learn quickly, how to adapt quickly, how to acquire new skills very rapidly. That's what's needed. Manikandan says, what do you think of the recent statement by our CDS vis-a-vis the narrative game? What's the realignment against Bharat since Operation Sindoor? So today I saw on social media, the news came out that our chief of defense staff gave an interview to, I think, Bloomberg, and looks like he has made a statement that kind of indicates that we may have lost a fighter plane or two or something. No numbers were given, but the statement sounds like he's a kind of, you could construe it to mean that he admitted that we lost at least one aircraft. My question is, why does the chief of defense staff have to give an interview to Bloomberg? I just don't understand what we are trying to achieve by doing this. I don't care if we lost one F-60 or one whatever aircraft or 5 or whatever. It doesn't matter. Recently, the Americans were doing these military operations against the Houthis. They lost 2 F-18s. Did the world make a hue and cry about that? No. But the world is trying to make a hue and cry about India, about us purportedly, allegedly losing, I don't know, whatever number of aircraft during that 3-day war against Pakistan, Operation Sindoor. We achieved all our objectives. We smashed Pakistan, but the world tries, the media, etc. They're trying to, say that if India lost X number of fighter planes, maybe 1, maybe 2, whatever, then it's a loss for India. My question is, why does India's chief of defense staff have to go and give an interview to Bloomberg, to an American media outlet? For what reason is this required? These folks, the American media, they are blatantly anti-India. Why do we have to go to them and give them the privilege of interviewing our chief of defense staff? I just don't understand it. It is incomprehensible to me. So what do I think of this recent statement? I think it is incomprehensible. I think it is a self-goal. I don't know what our CDS is doing. Is it doing this on his own, or was he ordered? Was he instructed to go and speak to Bloomberg? If he was instructed to go and speak to Bloomberg, then who gave him the instructions? And for what reason? How does it serve our national interest? Every single thing a government or military official does, every single thing is supposed to serve the national interest. In what way does the CDS giving an interview to Bloomberg and saying whatever he said, how does it serve the national interest? It doesn't serve the national interest, according to me. Maybe I'm completely, clueless, huh? But I fail to see how it serves our national interest. So what was the objective of what the CDS did? I just don't get it. I fail to understand. I fail to comprehend. Maybe my IQ is too low. But this is incomprehensible to me. Right, so that's all I have to say about this. What's the realignment against Bharat, against Operation Sindoor? The same old stuff. The Western media is against us. And they are trying to push the Pakistani narrative. Lots of, there's more and more evidence is emerging about the strikes India did, about the details of the strikes and the damage it caused on Pakistani military installations, air force bases, and so on. And zero evidence is coming out of any hit the Pakistanis may have done or may have claimed to do on our infrastructure. Zero. Not a shred of evidence, and not a shred of evidence of an Indian aircraft going down. But the media is arrayed against us, and that's what we should expect. That's how it goes. But I don't understand why our chief of defense staff has to go to the enemy and give an interview to the white man or the white man's organization. What is it? Is it an inferiority complex thing? What exactly is it? I just don't get it. It is incomprehensible. Most likely, I'm just not intelligent enough to understand what the game is. Kumar Kanishk says, why are we so lacking in information warfare globally, especially from Western media? It's not like we need any validation from the West, but it looks bad as our image is so tarnished and perception matters today. We can fight our own information warfare if we wish to. You need assets that can be deployed. You need assets on social media, hundreds, maybe thousands of accounts that push forth the Indian narrative or whatever narrative warfare we want to fight. You need accounts on Twitter. You need hundreds of YouTube channels that do the same thing in shorts and all that, Instagram accounts. And you need big media outlets that put forth a narrative. And now, whose job is it to create this infrastructure? Is it my job? I'm one person. I can run one channel. Hmm? Is it the job of the average common man and woman of India, this amorphous entity, or is it the job of the government of India to create this sharp edge sword that will lead from the forefront in information warfare? It's the government's job to create this. The Chinese have created this infrastructure. They have so many channels, distribution outlets all over social media, whether it is Instagram, whether it is YouTube, whether it is Facebook, whether it is whatever else, whether it's Twitter. They have their own big media outlets like what Global Times and CCTN and whatnot. They have invested in these things. We have completely failed. Our government has completely failed to invest in these things. The Chinese have the 10-cent army, or whatever they call it, 20-cent or 2-cent army. I don't know what it's called, but a paid army of bots that just create this noise, this pro-China noise, and attack anybody who's anti-China all over social media. Why hasn't India invested in this? Like you say, perception matters. The government is supposed to do that. The government has essentially unlimited funds at its disposal. Is India's image not important? So this is a failing. This is something that the government of India has failed to do. Right? This is a loss. This is something they should have done and they have not done. So it's unfortunate and it's disappointing. Ritik says, can AI help us reach type 1 civilization by 2100? A type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale is a civilization that controls the entire energy and resources of its home planet. Can AI help us reach that stage by 2100? AI can help us reach pretty close to that. That would mean that the entire planet becomes, gets plundered for resources. Think about it. It's not a very nice thought. The entire planet becomes just a gigantic resource. Everything is plundered. Everything is deconstructed. Every square kilometer of the land is exploited or mined in some way. Well, AI can help us reach there definitely by 2100, or get us very close to it for sure. Kanish Kaushik says, most of my generation, Gen Z, is unaware or unbothered about what's happening in Indian history, the distortions and all that. Firstly, how can I contribute in solving this issue? Secondly, solution of skill gap crisis and jobs. Third, how can we force government to reform education? And thank you. Okay, multiple questions in one. What can you contribute in solving this issue? Well, if you want to solve the issue of the distortions that exist in history and that thing, then you have to become a historian and create put forth the correct picture. Without being an expert in the field, there's not much you can do except for amplifying on social media and elsewhere what good historians are already doing. So right now, historically, we only had the bad historians who had any kind of exposure. Everybody else was marginalized. We had great historians and scholars like Dr. B.B. Lal who were completely sidelined, marginalized, right? But today, in the age of social media, it's impossible to marginalize anybody as long as sufficient numbers of people stand with the right voice. So what you can do if you're not an expert is amplify the voices of the historians who are trying to set the narrative right, okay, and trying to portray the correct version of what happened in our history. And our history is very, very vast, goes back 10,000 years. So there are lots of different people, the historians, who are working on different facets and different aspects and different eras of our history. So as a non-expert, you can amplify that on social media, but if you really want to make a significant dent, significant impact, then you have to become an expert and do your own original research. Secondly, solution of skill gap crisis in jobs. Like I've said a million times, we have to reform the education system. Why do we have so many unskilled people in India? People with degrees, master degree and whatnot, but when they get into a job, they have absolutely no skills. They're clueless, and they have to be trained as if they are starting from zero. It's because of the rotten education system that we have, and I have spoken about this at length, and I need to write about this. So the solution is complete reformation of the education system, and nothing has been done about that. How can we force government to reform the education system? Well, we can shout from the rooftops and shout from the treetops. Beyond that, there's nothing much we can do as ordinary people, because, well, the government doesn't listen to people, who say, the government only listens to certain classes of people. That's how it works. Unless you have a street veto, nobody listens to you in India. So I'm not asking anybody to go on the streets and do anything like that. That's totally wrong. We don't do such things. How do we force government to reform education? I think only mass movement can do it. If all of us unite and refuse to go to school, refuse to go to college, refuse to go to university, we will not go anymore until you reform the education system. Complete strike. Let's use Mr. Gandhi's methods. They actually can work. Mr. Gandhi's methods of satyagraha, they're supposed to be used not against foreign occupiers, but against when you need to have change in your country in a civilized way. So yeah, let's do satyagraha. Let's everybody, instead of jail bharo, we should have school chodo, university chodo, college chodo. Everybody go, refuse to attend classes because the education system is rotten. This can only happen if there is unity, but there isn't that. Right. So that's, Mr. Gandhi's methods can be used in certain scenarios where you don't want to fight your government, but you want to tell the government that certain things need to be done. In that case, you can use the method of satyagraha. So Mr. Gandhi did give us some good tools, but he used them against the people who were occupying India. He used them non-violently, and satyagraha is supposed to be a non-violent tool. So yeah, that's a thought. That's a thought. Rahul Lakshmanan says, first of all, everybody, thank you so much for the contributions to the channel. It'll really help. So Rahul says, does India have a long-term vision for mining the asteroids for minerals and metals? As of now, whatever one hears about the long-term plans for ISRO, there is nothing about mining asteroids, asteroid mining or such. As of now, the plans that we have are as follows. We're going to have a space station in orbit sometime by the 2030s. Sometime this decade, maybe in a year or two, we're going to have the first Indian space flights, human space flights. So we're going to have Indian astronauts in orbit. Eventually, we're going to have a space station where Indian astronauts can stay in orbit for an extended period of time. Right? By about 2040, we're going to have a Chandrayaan mission that will land humans on the moon, Indian humans on the moon, and that's as far as I can see that the plans are. We don't seem to have plans beyond that. If the plans exist, they have not been put out in public, right? But I don't think anybody, whether it's NASA or SpaceX or whoever else, has a clear roadmap for starting asteroid mining, because asteroid mining is something that's far in the future. The asteroid belt is millions of kilometers away. It's way, way far away. It's between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. The furthest anybody has concretely planned thus far is simply reaching Mars, which is Elon Musk and SpaceX. But the asteroid belt is beyond the orbit of Mars. It's between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And it's not like you have millions of asteroids right in front of you. It's empty space. There are millions of kilometers of distance between any two asteroids. So yeah, asteroid mining is going to be very difficult. It's something we shouldn't even bother to think about for 100 years, unless there are gargantuan leaps in technology. So yeah, as of now, we don't have that. Feminist Slayer says, if humans can't survive on Earth, a habitable planet, due to overexploitation, how could they possibly expect to survive on the more hostile Mars instead? The plan is simple. We exploit and plunder the planet Earth, then we move on to Mars and do the same thing there, and then we become a planet hopping civilization. We go to a planet, we plunder, exploit it, then we go to another planet, we do the same thing there, and that sort of thing. That's the Western way of doing things. That's what they've been doing for the past 500 years, ever since they became the dominant force on the planet. It's a civilizational and cultural thing. The Western worldview, the Abrahamic worldview, is that the planet is a resource to be extracted. Everything on the planet is a resource for our enjoyment. It exists for our enjoyment and our for our use. So plunder the planet, plunder Earth. Once it becomes uninhabitable, go to Mars. Eventually, set up a big population there, and you plunder that planet also. Then you move on somewhere else. Maybe you will terraform Venus in the next 1,000 years. Maybe in the meanwhile you will completely industrialize the moon, and in 30 years time, when people look at the moon, you will see lights all over the place. So that's not a good viable strategy, but it's a cultural thing, it's a civilizational thing, and the Western civilization culture is that of exploitation and plunder. That's why it's important for India to be a major player in the space exploration sector, because otherwise it's going to be just exploitation all over and over again. Strike 47, thank you so much, sir. Okay, what's the question? I recently saw Dr. Ranganathan's talk about how Israel helped us during Kargil and the Pokhran tests. Do they find us to be good friends? There are no friendships in geopolitics, but India is a valuable partner to have for a nation like Israel. And for India also, Israel is a valuable partner to have, because both nations have a lot to offer to each other, right? So look, any help that is given is not help, it's an investment for the future. And it's not like the help doesn't come at a price, right? If X nation during wartime is selling us so and so arms, ammunition, weapons, they are selling it to us, they're not giving it for free. So it's a sale, it's a transaction, it's a business transaction, commercial transaction. But certain nations will refuse to do commercial transactions with you. They'll say, we won't give you what you need. So in that case, so Israel definitely did the commercial transactions, and they sold us various ammunition, etc., whatever, during the Kargil war, and it was good for us. I don't know about the Pokhran test, but during the Kargil war, definitely we were buying arms and ammunition, whatever it was, from Israel. So Israel is a good partner to have for India. India is a good partner to have for Israel. We have a lot of synergy. There's a lot of convergence of strategic interests, national interests. There's a lot of cooperation that's happening in the defense field, etc. So it's a good partnership for us. Okay, but please understand, in geopolitics, there's no such thing as friendship. It's all partnerships, and you can have alliances as well. But it only works when there is a significant convergence of interests of both the nations. If both the nations have very similar interests, then it makes sense, obviously, logically, for these two nations to work together wherever the interests align. So that's the case that we have between India and Israel. Prabhav says, do the theories of Einstein prove that the future is predefined? Does that prove that free will doesn't exist? It's not Einstein's theories that could possibly raise this question of whether the future is predefined or not. So it's very simple. It's Einstein's theories. What are Einstein's theories? It's the theory of relativity, general relativity and special relativity. And according to general relativity, gravitation, the force that the so-called force of gravitation, it's nothing but the curvature of space-time. The presence of mass tells space-time how to curve, and the curvature of space-time tells mass how to move. So that kind of looks like, it kind of predetermines how things will happen on the grandest scale. But Einstein also is one of the pioneers and founders of the quantum theory, quantum mechanics, quantum field theory, eventually, which it became. And in quantum mechanics, there is indeterminacy, right? There is the fact that there is randomness in nature. Nature is random, nature is non-local, nature is shockingly counterintuitive, and we don't quite understand quantum mechanics. We know how to use it, but we don't quite understand what it means and what it's telling us. But so there is something called quantum fluctuations, which arise out of quantum randomness, completely random events at the very smallest scale of the universe. But if you look at the big picture to understand about whether something is predetermined or not, see, today we have a certain kind of universe, and we know that the universe is expanding. right? And we know that the universe has a certain temperature, the CMBR temperature, cosmic microwave background radiation temperature. And we know that in the past, therefore, the universe must have been much smaller. So if we run the clock backwards, we can see that everything goes back to a single point from which the universe expanded. That's the Big Bang theory. So if everything expanded out of a single point, and we know all the particles that exist in the universe, then these particles follow very straightforward laws that are governed by differential equations. If you take the randomness factor out of it, then it looks like everything is predetermined, and the randomness is genuinely random, so you can't predict that randomness. But beyond that, everything seems to be predetermined. So it looks like super determinism is a thing. And if that is the case, then there is no such thing as free will. And what I am saying right now has been determined 13.8 billion years ago, essentially. So that's a scary thought, isn't it? But it's still a work in progress. Okay, we don't have a final answer for sure. Sergeant Skyland says we have reached a $4 trillion economy, but will we fall into the middle income economy? If so, what can we do to fix it? So we are now roughly $4.5 trillion as an economy. That's the annual GDP that we have. We have surpassed Japan, so we are the fourth largest economy now. And in a reasonably short time, we will surpass Germany as well, and will become the third largest economy. That is written, you can say. That is fated. But then what? So if we become a $5 trillion economy, let's say in the next 1 or 2 years, then the per capita GDP of India will be still a very low per capita GDP. So it's not even a middle income economy, it's a reasonably low income economy. But let's say we reach the $10 trillion mark in the next 5 years, 10 years, whenever it happens, hopefully 5 years, then we become kind of a middle income economy, kind of low middle income or middle income. But we want to become a high income economy, right? That's the great dream. How do we fix it? The only way to do it is by becoming a manufacturing power, a major manufacturing power. For that, a lot of reforms have to be done. We need a lot of foreign investment. There are a lot of rich, wealthy investors and nations out there who would love to invest in India, set up shop in India, set up manufacturing plants in India. Everybody is looking for an alternative to China, especially the Western nations. The only nation that can do that at scale, replace China, is India. So the government needs to reform the economy. It needs to make the ease, we need better ease of doing business. We need to roll out the red carpet for investors and so on and so forth. A lot of things need to be done. So the only way we'll become a more than middle income economy is if we become a real manufacturing superpower. It's certainly doable. We have the demographics for it. We have all the conditions that you need for becoming a manufacturing great power, superpower. So the government needs to make sure that this happens smoothly and there are no unnecessary obstacles in the way. If that happens, then we can definitely become a middle income economy soon. Right now, we are not a middle income economy. We are a low income economy. The GDP per capita of India is abysmal. Okay. So yeah, the first step is to become a middle income economy. Then we'll think about becoming a high income economy, which is very difficult unless you steal everybody's wealth. That's what the West has done. The reason the West is a high income economy, these nations, is because they've plundered everybody else's wealth and reduced everybody to abject poverty in the past 500 years. Don't look at the past 50 years, 70 years. Look at the past 500 years. Then you understand what happened. That's why they are high income economies, because they took all the wealth everybody else had earned over hundreds, thousands of years and stole it all. Right? We don't want to do that, hopefully, I guess. Shubham says, if you can go back in time and change any 3 events in Indian or world history, which events would you choose? Well. Okay, that's an interesting question. What would I do? That's a great question. What would I do? First of all, during the period of time when the Turkic invasions happened, I would ensure that there was a major Indian empire in power in India. Maybe prolong the reign of the Gupta Empire by another 500 years. That would mean that by the time the Turkic invasions happened, at that time the Gupta Empire would still be strong and powerful, and we have a united subcontinent. In which case, the Arabic and Turkic invasions would have been crushed, absolutely, utterly crushed. So that's one thing I would change. Failing that, I would. Second thing I would change in more recent history is I would ensure the Maratha Empire doesn't crumble because of infighting. Right? The British did not destroy the Mughal Empire, they destroyed the Maratha Empire. We already had Hindavi Swarajya in India. We already had re-established a civilization state. The British destroyed it. They did not destroy the Mughal Empire, they destroyed the Maratha Empire. So what I would change if I could, if I had the power, is I would ensure the Maratha Empire did not suffer from all the infighting. It remained strong, it had a strong leadership, and that way the British, and hopefully they would have the wisdom to kick the British out. We don't need you over here, get the hell out. That's the second thing I would change. What's the third thing I would change? I would make uh, the Indian rebellion of 1946 succeed, which means that we would have a military government in power in 1946, and they would have kicked the British out through force. That way, all the British appointed puppets who came to power after 1947, they would never come to power. They would have a military government, a military dictatorship, perhaps, and let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. I'm sure they were all well motivated people, the ones who tried to, revolt against the British. The Indian naval revolt, and then it could have become a bigger revolt if the Indian armed forces had come to know what was happening. But yeah, it was foiled by Mr. Gandhi and his minions. So that's another thing I would change. So that's three events, hopefully. Okay, Harshit says, did the Modi government kill leaders in Lakshadweep to develop it for tourism? If not, what's the news earlier about local leaders being killed? I have heard no such news whatsoever. Kill leaders in Lakshadweep to develop it for tourism. I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea. This is the first time I'm ever hearing of something like this. I don't think we in India do such things. Kill leaders to develop a place for tourism. No, I have never heard of this, which means that it is most likely untrue. Whatever you may have heard, I have not heard of it for sure, and that's not how the Modi government operates at all. Purohit, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your viewership, all of you. Thank you. Mr. 88 says, why didn't China target the Siliguri corridor in 1962? The Siliguri corridor. Maybe at that time they just wanted to humiliate India. See, in 1962, at that time, India was under the leadership of the great, magnificent Mr. Nehru, who was positioning himself as a great world statesman, greater than everybody else in the world, because he could lecture the world about what was right and what was wrong, and so on. And Mao Zedong was really, really annoyed with Mr. Nehru for whatever reason. Mr. Mao Zedong thought that maybe he should be more magnificent than Mr. Nehru. So I think Mr. Mao Zedong wanted to teach the great, magnificent Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru a lesson by humiliating him, by taking bits and pieces of Indian territory and annexing that. So once that was done, once the Chinese made inroads and then they stepped back and they just grabbed some territory, the humiliation was done. I think the objective of the 1962 war for China was to inflict a military defeat on India, which would be a humiliation for India on the international stage. And after that, the world would not take Mr. Nehru and India seriously anymore. And I think they achieved that. So just a little bit of territorial gain is sufficient to achieve that objective. They didn't want to completely balkanize India, break India, and so on and so forth at that point in time. Later on, Chinese generals and military thinkers have written articles about the need for China to balkanize India and so on. They've done that later. But Mao Zedong's objective was not to balkanize India. It was simply to essentially inflict a military and political defeat on India and to humiliate the great, magnificent Mr. Nehru. And I think he succeeded at that. So that's why they didn't target the Siliguri corridor. Yash Sahu says, day by day, my belief in the Indian judiciary is declining. Why is it starting to feel more biased? What should be needed to make the Indian judiciary more fair and transparent? Look, in any democracy, every single institution in the nation needs to come under the complete purview of the will of the people, right? Which means that if judicial appointments are done, they should be under the control and review of the people's elected officials. So I think currently that state doesn't exist for whatever reason, for historical reasons. And that's why obviously one can understand that many Indians would feel that there are issues with this particular institution. So what needs to be done, I would say, is for the government to take this up. The government of India, the central government, they are our elected representatives. It is for them to take the necessary actions to ensure that everything is as per the standards we expect in a fully functional and high quality democracy. So I think whatever reforms need to happen in the judicial domain, those need to be thought through by the government, and those need to be implemented and deployed step by step. I think attempts were done in the past and maybe did not work out, but I'm sure the government of India has the people's mandate to carry out whatever reforms are required. So I would leave it to the government of India to do what is right and do it as per, you know in 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 a properly defined time frame, not something that goes on forever. Remnants to revival. Thank you so much for your contribution. Appreciate it. Thank you. Rahul says, what happened during Operation Kahuta? Operation Kahuta. Now, what on earth is that? Kahuta is a nuclear facility in Pakistan, isn't it? I don't know. So let me try and Google Operation Kahuta. What is Operation Kahuta? Let's see. So here we have our friend Google. Operation Kahuta. What is that? A clandestine operation program undertaken by Pakistan. Okay, the Pakistan Nuclear Weapons Development Program. It was called the Kahuta Project. Okay. So what happened? Okay, so let's not go into this. I understand what Operation Kahuta is, the Pakistani program to develop nuclear weapons. Look, what really happened, we're not quite sure, but eventually they ended up with nuclear weapons. So Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had promised, had made this commitment to himself and to his people of Pakistan, that Pakistan will anyhow develop a nuclear weapon after India's 1974 test in Pokhran 1. So the Pakistanis said that it doesn't matter if we have to eat grass, but we will deploy all our resources in developing nuclear weapons. And then they started this nuclear weapons program. And in the 1980s, India and Israel wanted to destroy their nuclear reactor. And Israel had chalked out a plan to deploy the Israeli Air Force from Indian air bases, and then Indian and Israeli aircraft would take off together and destroy the Pakistani reactor. But at the last moment, Israel somehow pulled out of it for I don't know what reason. Now, the question is, you have to understand that Israel is America's number one ally. Israel is the United States' number one ally. And Pakistan was a very prominent US vassal state in the 1980s. So was there an American angle which made the Israelis pull out of the plan to destroy the Pakistani nuclear base? Was an assurance or a commitment given to Israel that Pakistan would never use nukes against Israel? Is there a secret understanding between Pakistan and Israel? That's the question. We don't know the answers to that. But eventually it is said that a Pakistani nuclear physicist called Abdul Qadir Khan, Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, AQ Khan, he stole some blueprints of centrifuges or whatever from the Netherlands or somewhere in Europe and brought them to Pakistan. And that's how the Pakistanis were able to acquire nuclear weapons. It is also alleged that maybe the Chinese provided them nuclear weapons technology, or maybe these nuclear weapons that the Pakistanis have, maybe these nuclear weapons are American nuclear weapons. We don't know quite what the truth is. A nation like Pakistan, a low-tech primitive nation like Pakistan, it's very hard to imagine that nation being able to develop nuclear weapons on its own or even with foreign help. Most likely these are nuclear weapons donated by either China or the US. Okay, that's what I think happened. So I don't think this Operation Kahuta to develop Pakistani nuclear weapons was successful. I don't think if there are any scientists or engineers who are capable of doing this. Most likely the nuclear weapons were donated to Pakistan to serve a certain purpose. I would say my money would be more on the Americans than the Pakistanis. So most likely, in my opinion, I have no evidence to back it up. It is just a hunch. Okay, I think the Pakistanis never were able to develop nuclear weapons. I think most likely the Americans or otherwise the Chinese donated a few nuclear weapons to Pakistan. And that's what Pakistan has been storing in its whatever places, nuclear storage sites. I think it's most likely the Americans. So that is what I think happened. This Operation Kahuta thing is just a eyewash. Thirumal RC says, "What's my thought on the potency of Palantir and Anduril? These are two terms from the Lord of the Rings. The Palantir was that seeing stone, and Anduril was the sword of Isildur or something. But these are now weapons systems. So let me just Google what is Palantir, what's Anduril. I think there is some network-centric warfare component, AI component. So what is Palantir? Palantir. Oops. What is Palantir? Palantir Technologies. What does it do? Software platforms for big data analytics, but obviously there's a military angle to it, artificial intelligence platform, and so on. Must be pretty good if the Americans are investing so much in it. And what's Anduril? Anduril. So that's defense, autonomous systems, okay, artificial intelligence and robotics. Look, the Americans are at the forefront of these technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's robotics, whether it's network-centric warfare, all that. So I'm sure these are pretty potent. But we have not seen them deployed in actual war thus far, as far as I know. But I'm sure the technology is great. Briganka Sekhar Biswas, thank you so much, sir. Meet, but thank you, sir. I'm passionate about geopolitics, geoeconomics, and international affairs. How can I build a career in this field in Canada, or India? Well, how do you build a career in geopolitics, geoeconomics, or international affairs? You can have a career in media, for example, in which, if you are an expert in these fields, you can be a prominent analyst in media. The second thing you can do is you can build a career as an academic if you're an expert in geopolitics, geoeconomics, geostrategy, international affairs. So you can be a professor or a lecturer or something. That's another thing you can do. What else can you do? You can start a think tank that offers very specialized niche services to companies and corporations, geostrategic consulting. So essentially, what's the risk exposure of the company? What's the geopolitical risk exposure that the company is currently facing, and how to mitigate those risks? What are the actions the company can take to mitigate the risks? How to spread the risks and hedge your bets and all that? What are the supply chains that the company uses that could be impacted by geopolitical developments? All of that sort of thing. That's called geostrategic risk consulting. That's one thing you could do. So you could have a think tank or a company that can offer such services. Otherwise, you can be part of a government and be a geostrategist, which means an advisor, a policy advisor, a strategic advisor to the government, to, let's say, the military or the Ministry of External Affairs or Foreign Ministry, Ministry of State, or whatever of the country. And if you are a high quality expert, they will have you as a consultant or as a strategic advisor, and you can then shape foreign policy. So these are the different ways in which you can build a career in geopolitics / geoeconomics and international affairs in either Canada or India. Now, Canada, I think India is more and more relevant in geopolitics, geostrategy. So in India, if you were there, you could either be in the media, or hopefully, if you are really good, you could be in the government, or you could be in academia, even though India's academic system is rotten. If you're in Canada, you could probably be an advisor to the government or be in academia, have a think tank or a firm that is a risk advisory firm, geostrategic risk advisory firm, and so on. So these are various things, various options you can explore if you want to build a career in geopolitics, geoeconomics, geostrategy, international affairs, etc. All right, all the best, sir. Shubham says, "Konnichiwa from Japan." Konnichiwa, sir. If you get a chance to ask 3 questions to a time traveler from the year 2100, what questions are you asking? Fascinating. What the questions I ask? So, first of all, I would ask, who's ruling the world? Is it an individual? Is it an entity? Is it a country? Is it a kingdom? Is it an empire? Who's ruling the world? Which are the major powers in 2100? That's one question I would ask. Secondly, I would ask, what's the population of the planet? And what's the forest cover? What's the biomass like? Is it all cattle, or is it or is it more wild animals? What's the balance like, biomass? I would ask what are the technologies that are prevalent? How far has the human species spread? Are we still confined to Earth, or have we colonized the moon? Have we colonized Mars? Have we ventured out further into space? What's the further human beings have traveled? Then I would ask, what are the latest advances in physics? Right? Have we been able to quantize gravity? Have we been able to figure out whether gravity is a force, or it's entirely something else? And yeah, gravity is the big question today. Nobody has been able to figure out what gravity is. We are at the same place where we are today in 2025 that we were in the year 2000. No progress whatsoever in gravity. So have we breached the big brick wall that is has caused the stagnation of the field of physics since 1979? These are some of the questions I would ask. I'm sure I would have many more questions as well. But yes, I think I've exceeded your quota of 3 questions, so I'll stop there. But yeah, that's the kind of questions I would have. I'm sure I would have a lot of other questions. Zishan, thank you, sir. Xi Jinping's hair is clearly starting to turn grey since he has been purging the CCP for 10 years. How do you think his succession will go? Is there a plan for Mr. Jinping's succession? Look, Mr. Xi Jinping is in his 70s, so obviously his hair. It's no surprise that his hair is turning grey, right? Many people who are much younger have their hair turning grey. I mean, for example, look at me. I'm in my late 40s, but so. So he has been purging the CCP for 10 years. What he has been doing, he has been consolidating power. Okay. If you want to be in power for a long time, you have to ensure that there are no potential uh, challengers in the fray, or around you, or in the Chinese Communist Party, or on the horizon. You have to identify every possible potential challenger and eliminate those. That's how it goes, and that's the way the game is played in the Chinese Communist Party. It's a very, very tough world, the Chinese Communist Party. Only the toughest rise, and even in out of those, that even those who are even tougher, they're the ones who actually survive and thrive in the Chinese Communist Party system. So if you want to rise in the CCP, you have to really perform at every stage of the game, at every level, whether it's at the village level, then the district level, then the city level, the state, the province level, eventually the central level. You have to really perform, and you have to outcompete and outperform everybody else. And there's intense competition for promotions and rising in status in the Chinese Communist Party, rising in status, rising in power. So it's a very tough game. It's completely meritocratic. It's only about merit. Of course, there will be some family connections and all. That game is also played. You have the so-called princelings, young princes, or whatever they're called. The second generation of the Chinese Communist Party leadership and so on. So there are nepotism games as well. But overall, it's mainly it's to a very large extent pretty meritocratic. So if somebody rises to the top position, that person has risen by eliminating all threats, opposition, and so on. So there's going to be a big body count behind that person, figuratively speaking, not literally speaking, maybe perhaps also literally. So Mr. Xi Jinping has consolidated his hold on the Chinese Communist Party. He's ensured that he is surrounded by people who are entirely, utterly, completely loyal to him. He has eliminated all challengers. But now he is in his 70s. Maybe, what's his age? 73, 74? Let's quickly Google it. What is Mr. Xi Jinping's age? I am assuming 73, 74 or something like that. Xi Jinping age. Okay, 71. So he is in his early 70s. So one could safely assume that he'll be in power maybe for the best part of the next decade. Yeah. But eventually there's going to be a succession. Because eventually, once you start reaching the 80s, you are no longer where you used to be when you were in your 60s and 70s, mentally and stamina wise, physical health wise. So you have to eventually hand over to a successor. How will the succession go? That's a big question mark. We don't know who could be the successor. I'm sure he must have already thought at this point in time of several potential successors. At that level, you have to make all the contingency plans, because you never know what will happen tomorrow, right? So I'm sure he has made some kind of plan for the transition of power, succession. And if the succession goes well, and the next person to come to power is equally good or better, then China will do great, right? That's always the critical phase in an empire or a kingdom's history, the succession between one leader and another. If the succession goes right and a good leader comes to power as the next person, a strong leader, then the empire thrives. But if a weak person comes to power, if an undeserving person comes to power, then all hell breaks loose and the empire crumbles. We have seen this over and over again. The transition of power, the succession, is the most critical phase. So, from a Chinese perspective, the Chinese people will be hoping that the succession goes well. And for us, we will wait and watch. What else can we say? Because the system is so opaque, we can't really tell what's happening and who could be the potential two, three people who could be chosen for being potential successors. We can't say from here. We can't even say for Russia who could be the next in line after Mr. Putin. So let's wait and watch. Remnants to Revival says Indian origin student getting suspended from MIT. Okay, that's news for me. I think there's a lot happening in the US education academic field. It's going to be really difficult going forward, it looks like, for Indians to study in the US. And it's a great opportunity in that case for India to offer better alternatives to students in India. But for that, we'll have to reform the education system, not apply band-aids on shotgun wounds. So, yeah. Siddesh's financial consultancy says recently PM Modi addressed rising Northeast Investors Summit. What are the benefits or aids the government is providing? Can you guide? I am not aware. I have not seen his address to the rising Northeast Investors Summit. And I've not read any of the documentation, so I don't know. But look, the Northeast, the far east of India, let's put that on the map. It's critical. It's a very important part of India. It's something that's very important. We need this region to be stabilized, and we need this region to develop. We need the people of this region to be prosperous and happy. So we are talking about, obviously, this region, which starts with Assam, Meghalaya, and we have the other states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, and Mizoram in this region. That's the so-called Northeast. It's actually the Indian Far East, and it's our gateway to Southeast Asia. And this region is geographically actually located within Southeast Asia. And we would like to see, it's very important for the country that this region does well. The people are prosperous. There is economic growth, there are economic opportunities, there are developmental opportunities, there are entrepreneurial opportunities, there are opportunities for the people who live in this region to better their life, to have better financial status, because the region has been historically very badly mistreated. Even today there are lots of disastrous things happening there. For example, especially the Kuki invasion of Manipur is a huge challenge for India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Project K, which was started by the Biden administration, the project to create a new nation, artificial nation, Kuki land for Christ, that is a huge challenge to India's sovereignty, and that's something we are still grappling with. So when you have a Northeast Investors Summit, it can be pretty much guaranteed that Manipur is currently not part of the equation, because Manipur is in chaos. So I'm not sure what the benefits and aids would be. I'm sure there would be, maybe you may get loans at preferential rates. Maybe you will get loans where earlier you could not get loans. Maybe some other guidance or other thing be given to small time entrepreneurs and so on. That's what I can imagine, but I'm not quite sure what the actual details are, because I've not looked into it. But what I can say is that the far east of India is a critical area. It's a critical geographical part of India, and we need to ensure. And there are lots of foreign eyes on the region, whether it's China, whether it is East Pakistan, Bangladesh, whether it's the US. Everybody wants to meddle in the region and destabilize the region. See, after the Afghan Taliban, they banned poppy cultivation in Afghanistan, banned the use, the cultivation of drugs in Afghanistan. There was a sudden upsurge in poppy plantations in Manipur. And, so all this needs to be taken care of, and the foreign influx into Manipur needs to be ended, and so on. So it's a very important region, and I hope it prospers long term. Really now says, with due respect, did the CDS fumble? With due respect, I find it incomprehensible what he did. What was the need for the chief of defense staff to give an interview to Bloomberg, to the Western media? What's the need to give an interview to the white man and justify our position, or give any statements? Why? I don't get it. And then whatever he said, it's even more incomprehensible. Did he fumble? It looks like he did, unless there were directions from up top somewhere to go and do this, which just don't understand. My simple question is this: every single action taken by people at this level has to directly serve the Indian national interest. In what way does this interview serve the Indian national interest, is my question. I don't get it. So, yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. Ma'am, I don't know. I don't know how to read this. Cyrillic, it's been too long. Can you please assess whether the rise of the right wing in Europe will be a good or a bad thing for India? Okay, Arsh Dogra. All right, got it. Europe is more and more irrelevant in the world today. The European nations, most of them, lack complete sovereignty. And they're not players in geopolitics. They are players in geoeconomics, because Europe is still, as a whole, the EU region, the Schengen region, it is one composite economy, and it's still a significant economy. But its economic magnitude is declining. It's no longer going to be the center of the world. So the rise of the right wing or left wing or whatever, it's an internal European problem. It's not going to have a long-term bearing on the long-term future of the world. And if right-wing governments come to power or left-wing governments stay in power, we're going to deal with them anyway in the best possible way. And we're going to tell them, look, we don't care about your politics. Your politics is your concern. It is none of our business, and we will not interfere in your internal politics. We respect what you're doing, and we respect the sentiments of the people of your country, and they've elected you. So we are very happy and very pleased to do business with you. And that's all it's going to be like. So whether it's right wing or left wing, we will seek to have mutually beneficial cooperation with them. So it will not really matter. See, in Italy, we have a right wing government. Madame Meloni, she is a right wing politician, and we have great relations with Italy under Madame Meloni. Monsieur Macron in France is a left wing politician. We have excellent relations with him, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't really matter for us. Okay, we're gonna have relationships based on mutual interests, in which case it's fine. In which case the local politics doesn't matter. Really now says Mahindra EV would be 100% indigenous if not for HREES and lithium. What is HREES? I'm not quite sure what that is. So shall I Google that? HREES? Not sure what you're saying, sir, but it helps if you don't use abbreviations. HREES. What is that? Okay, rare earth elements. Heavy rare earth. Okay. Well, you're talking about heavy rare earth elements. So the Mahindra electric vehicle would be 100% indigenous. Well, I think we need to start looking for our own heavy rare earth elements. We have a gigantic territorial area, and I'm sure we have rare earths, but maybe we haven't done enough to look for them. So I think that's what we need to do, right? We need to start looking for our own rare earth minerals and elements within India. Shiv Menon, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. Geopolitical Dubey says, will Trump achieve anything apart from Nobel Prize? I don't think he's going to get a Nobel Prize. He won't get it. And what will he achieve? He's going to achieve more. He's going to... his actions are going to result in more instability in the world. He's rampaging around like a drunk elephant, right? Isn't he? And it's going to cause old alliances of the US to become very shaky. Alliances like NATO, alliances like the European Union, and he's going to alienate a lot of nations that would otherwise have been long-term partners for the US, and a lot of short-term players will seek to gain quick wins and quick benefits from Trump. The way he is going, it's going to be like that. So it looks like he's going to end up doing way more harm than good to the US. And maybe it's by design. Maybe they want to shake up the world order, but I don't think he's going to achieve anything the way he's going right now. He's going to end up doing way more harm than good. Uh, yeah. Nanda Kizor says, what's the relationship between the US and Israel? What is the history of the creation of Israel? Was it created by certain someone? Do they control the deep state? What's the relationship between the two nations? The US regards Israel as its number one ally, and this is an ally that there are no conditions here. This is an unconditional alliance. So it's a privileged relationship that Israel enjoys with the US, and no matter what Israel does, the US will support Israel and stand by Israel. So that's the relationship. Why is it like that? I'm not quite sure, but it is what it is. What's the history of the creation of Israel? Well, that's a very long answer to give, but Israel was created, um, you know, at the end of, let's say, the Second World War, around that time, 47, 48, around that time. The process started long before that. Uh, of course, this land historically, if you go back 2,000 years, it belonged to the Jewish people. 2,500 years before the Assyrians came and deported the Jews to various parts of the world, and then the Persians came in and saved the Jews and so on under Kurush the Great, Cyrus the Great. Long history. We'll not go into that. But after World War II, after the events of the Second World War and the persecution of the Jews by the Nazis and so on, this nation was eventually created. And the moment it was created, it went to war and so on. You had the initial war, but it survived and it's been able to thrive mainly with American and Western help and so on. Was it created by a certain someone? I'm not sure who the certain someone is, so I don't know. Do they control the deep state? Well, that's a good question, and we don't know, but it's possible. It's possible. Sai Teja Reddy says, how do top chess grandmasters calculate 30 plus moves ahead rapidly? And can an average person train themselves to develop such similar deep calculation abilities? I think, look, first of all, if you want to be a chess grandmaster, many people want to become one, but very few people are actually able to achieve that, right? It's because it's so incredibly hard. It's very difficult. You need a certain kind of mental framework and mental makeup to be able to do this. So you need to obviously be super intelligent and have great powers of concentration and have a tremendous memory to be able to do this. And then what you do in chess is you study patterns and you study openings and you study end games and you study various tactical maneuvers and so on, and you memorize as much as possible, and you just do it over and over again. So the more you do it, the more you're able to retain. Typically, chess grandmasters can mostly think 12, 13, 14 moves ahead. I'm not sure about 30 plus. Maybe it's possible. Maybe people like Kasparov, Anand, uh, Karpov, Kramnik, etc., may be able to do that. Who's the latest guy? Magnus Carlsen, yes, and so on. Maybe the elite grandmasters could perhaps calculate 30 plus moves ahead. Uh, and the average person can try and emulate that. Maybe the average person can do 5 moves, 6 moves ahead. But the more you try, the better you get. So the average person can also use the same methods. I'm not sure you will get the same results, but it'll certainly make you a better thinker, and it'll give you a better better memory and better reasoning power, etc. So it's certainly something, if you want to do, you can try and follow similar approaches like chess training. Debashri Mukhadi, thank you so much. Thank you. Nanda Kishore says, how does the world power center work? The few powerful people only control US and its vassals, or do they have their arms into RIC too? Do we control the RBI? Look, we don't know, right? If there is a small number of people who control the world, they have done a great job of staying hidden, because we don't know their names, we don't know who they are. There is speculation that they are the Illuminati, they are the whatever else, but that's all speculation. There is zero hard evidence. The one thing, see, historically, kingdoms and empires always went out of their way to showcase their instruments of power, right? That's how you showcased how glorious you were. So the Romans made these great columns and made these great monuments in which they recorded all their victories and the names of the great people, great generals who won the victories, and the names of the emperors and so on. And the Persians did that. Our emperors did that. Our empires did that. Whether it's the Mauryas or the Kushans or the Guptas or the Cholas or the Marathas or whoever, we've always glorified and put the people in power front and center, right? And showcase the instruments of power. The Anglo-Saxons, what they've done is that they have sought to hide their instruments of power and hide what they're actually doing to stay in power. That way they can do whatever they want, but still they can keep on harping on about human rights and democracy and all that. So when you have a system which tries to hide its instruments of power and the people who are in power, that's when you end up with a system like this. So we don't know what the power center is like. We don't know who the people who may or may not be the real people in power, in charge, who they are. And since the US is the most powerful nation, maybe it looks like they control that nation, and by extension, its vassals. Uh, would they have their arms into RIC too, Russia, India, China? Well, they would love to have their tentacles deep inside RIC. See, I think the Chinese got rid of all their spies embedded within a long time ago, starting with the time Mr. Xi Jinping came to power. They identified and got rid of all the spies. Maybe some still exist. The Russians under Mr. Putin also have done that. I think if you look at RIC, India would most likely be the most compromised. Yeah. Do we control RBI? As far as we know, we do. Anonymous says, Otbo Desi Raju Sir's podcast. I don't know what Otbo means. Let me quickly see what Otbo means. OTBO. Ohio Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners. Okay, I don't know what it means, but whatever. If I have to open a tech company, then where should I build or position my headquarters based on the 75 states map? Should I build multiple mini headquarters across Bharat? It depends on how much capital you can deploy and what you're manufacturing. And there's a reason why a company is located in position X, location X, if not instead of location Y or location Z. How do you decide where to have the headquarters of your company? There are multiple factors that go into this choice. If you're a manufacturing company, then you need to be in a place where, especially your manufacturing plants need to be where it's easy to access, easy to get the raw materials for the manufacturing. If you need a headquarters, then it should be ideally centrally located where, equidistant from all the manufacturing plants, so you can have equal access to all of them. And of course it makes sense to be in a financial hub where you get access to all the financial services and so on, so forth and so on. So it depends. If you're a tech company, you want to be in a place where you have other tech companies, because then you have all the infrastructure and everything you need. But a tech company needs a place like, for example, Bangalore or Pune or Hyderabad or something. These are the places where you have lots of tech companies, because all the infrastructure you need for tech companies is available there easily. So it makes sense. If you were to build multiple mini headquarters, imagine the cost how much it will cost you to either buy or rent all that, the office space, and hire people and have them there and so on. So it makes sense to have just one headquarters, and in today's world you can control everything virtually from one location. So there's no need to build multiple mini headquarters. It makes sense to have just one headquarters. So that's that makes more sense. Rohan Suneja, thank you so much. Thank you very much, sir. Really now says, government really left illegals in the no man's land, lol. It looks like the government of India is now taking some kind of action against the illegal Bangladeshi infiltrators who are squatting on our territory. It's a good beginning, and it should really, really, really be taken to the next level, because we have maybe 100 million of these cumulatively, plus the Rohingyas, plus the Cookies, plus the Pakistanis, plus God knows who else. So it's high time we do this. Whether you leave them in no man's land, or you push them properly into Bangladesh or whatever, that's not our problem. We don't want illegals on our territory. That's it. The best thing for the illegals is to move out voluntarily. Otherwise, they will face whatever consequences according to the law. So I'm glad the government of India is now finally taking some action. I think it's a good beginning, and I congratulate and appreciate the government of India, and I thank the government of India for starting the process. And please take it to its logical conclusion. Please evict all of them. I know it'll take a lot of time, maybe 2-3 years, perhaps. Hopefully, I know it's a lot of effort, but the country really needs this. So please do this. Prabhav says, please launch a course to teach us physics and quantum mechanics from the beginning. What's the most mind-bending thought experiment you have done? Thought experiments, you can do all kinds of things. Launch a course to teach physics. I mean, how many takers will be there? I can do that, certainly. But let's say I spend 6 months and create a whole course and record the whole thing and create all the course materials, and then 20 people buy it, because nobody wants to. There are very few takers for physics courses. I would love to do it. I would love nothing more than doing this, because this is what I love the most. But after spending all the time and effort, if 20 people, 50 people buy the course, then it's like, when you create a course, it has to be something that's highly in demand. That will provide value to as many people as possible. That's the best way to use your time. I mean, I would love to do physics live streams every day. I would love to do that. But you see me mainly talking about geopolitics because it is more relevant to the lives of most people, right? Most people don't care about science. They doesn't affect their lives. It's a very niche topic for most people. Space exploration, quantum field theory. Who cares about these things? So that's why I don't talk about that much these days. I don't do those live streams anymore. So yeah, I would love to do this. What's the most mind-bending thought experiment I have done? Thought experiments, there are so many of these. So one of the interesting thought experiments in quantum mechanics is the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, which kind of raises the question of retro causality. Do things that happen in the past, do things that happen in the future have an effect on the past? That sort of thing. Delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, thought experiment. So, right. Aries Manticore says, does the Western Empire have an expiration date? Every empire has an expiration date. But what the date is, we can't tell unless we are fortune tellers or we are superior geopolitical analysts or geostrategists. Does the Western Empire have an expiration date? As of now, I can't see an expiration date. If they win the AI race, then they could have an expiration date which is in excess of 1,000 years. If they win the AI race and they are the first to develop artificial superintelligence, they'll win the war. Then nobody will be able to catch up with them. So yeah, right now the fate of the world is in the balance. Who's gonna win the AI race? That's gonna essentially determine the future of who rules humanity. Rohan Suneja says, how can we solve India's white labeling program? Like Indian companies buying foreign goods and putting their label on it. Well, it is what it is. It's not illegal. You can just have a Chinese company manufacture whatever, bring it here, stamp your label on it, and sell it. Who will know? And you get such cheap products all over the place. Whether you look at Flipkart or Amazon or whatever, you see the same product with different brands, different branding, same thing. They're all, I'm sure, manufactured in China, imported here in large quantities at big scale, and then the local companies put their label and market it as if it's something they made. So this problem, how can it be solved? Firstly, we have to prevent the Chinese from dumping cheap products into India by raising the trade and tariff barriers. Secondly, we have to seriously encourage make in India, manufacturing in India. Everything should be manufactured in India. So if you first of all prevent these things from coming into India, then there will be need for manufacturing things in India. So it has to be a well calibrated approach, well thought out, properly sequenced approach. So most of these things that come in from China are not really necessities, right, for us. It's kind of luxuries and nice to have items. So those things, you can put higher tariffs on them, and whatever necessities may exist, we can consider allowing those to be imported from China on a case by case basis. So that's one thing we can do. And then we have to do it, make it really easy for Indian businesses to do well in India. Ease of doing business, ease of manufacturing, cut down on the red tape, cut down on the alleged corruption, which allegedly is allegedly everywhere, and so on. All those things, if we can do, then we can solve these problems. Vishal Nantha says, what are axion particles? Axions are a hypothetical form of dark matter. These are particles that interact. See, our regular particles, like protons, neutrons, electrons, uh, quarks, and all the other particles of the standard model zoo, all these particles, most of them, they interact via multiple forces. One is the strong nuclear force, second is the weak nuclear force, third is electromagnetism, fourth is gravity. Now, when it comes to the electron, if you look at the proton, if you look at the neutron, these all have different forces that they interact via. Now, when it comes to the axion, it doesn't interact via the electromagnetic force. It's a hypothetical particle. The axion, this hypothetical particle, does not interact via electromagnetism. It doesn't interact via the strong force. It only interacts via the weak nuclear force and gravity. So that's why they are supposedly so high, so difficult to detect. In that, they're kind of, you know, similar to neutrinos, from that perspective, because neutrinos, they interact only via the weak force, and they're very small mass, so almost negligible gravitational interaction. So axions, if they exist, they could be a significant, important component of dark matter. It's a candidate particle for dark matter, but we have never observed them. So that's in brief what axions are. Project Smiling Buddha says, are mixed race children inferior? A lot of such content on the internet that says so, like they have identity issues, bad genes, etc. Most of this content comes from white supremacists on the internet. And because on platforms like Twitter, etc., they are given a lot of prominence for some reason, white supremacist accounts. That's why these claims become quite popular. Like, race mixing is inferior, like race mixing is bad, the white race is superior. If white people may intermarry with people from other races, then you are doing race mixing, and then the resulting human beings are of inferior quality, and so on. These are all white supremacist claims. And yeah, you are right. There's a lot of content on the internet that says so, because these accounts are somehow being pushed by X, being given special prominence by X. It looks like that. What happens when people? Okay, so what happens first of all when you have children born of two parents of the same so-called race? It means that both the parents are quite similar genetically. There's a lot of genetic proximity between the parents. Now, we know that all human beings are related to each other. We are all distant cousins of each other. But when it comes to Indians, we are much closely related to each other compared to, let's say, people from Africa, or people from Finland, or people from Botswana, or people from China. Indians are closer relatives of each other than other nationalities. Or let's say you take any two people from Sweden, or two people from Italy, or people from France. Any two humans from France will be genetically much more similar to each other than a French person and, let's say, a German person, or a French person and a Russian person, so on. So when you have two parents of the same so-called ethnicity or race, then it means they are genetically similar, and the child will also be very genetically similar to them. When you have parents of two different races, so let's say a black person and a white person, or an Indian and a Japanese person, or something like that, right? Then you have parents who are genetically quite distant from each other. And when these two parents produce children, then the children will inherit very different sets of genes. And typically what happens is that the more distant the parents are genetically, the stronger the genetics of the offspring is going to be, because it's going to be able to pull from the best genetics of both parents. So you know that the closer the parents are, the more there is the chance of inbreeding, right? And genetic defects, which tells you that the more distant genetically the parents are, the superior the children are going to be from a long-term genetic perspective. So it's not like they're going to have bad genes. It means that they're going to have stronger genes. Identity issues and all, well, that's a sociological problem, socio-cultural problem. And they may have identity issues depending on the kind of country you're living in. In the US, everybody is race mixed, so who cares about identity issues? There are no identity issues. If you are in even in most European countries today, a lot of people are of mixed ethnicity because of the ongoing social demographic re-engineering program and so on. So I don't think in today's day and age there's going to be identity issues. And this story about bad genetics, that's complete fiction, unfortunately. Hardik Joshi says, "What's the possibility of World War III given the current global fiction? Also, will India achieve its economic goals even if there is a regime change? Right now, hopefully, the possibility of World War III is remote and distant. What could be the global triggers right now for World War III? What is my definition of World War III? My definition of World War III is nuclear exchange between major nuclear powers. That's my definition of World War III. Essentially, it means a nuclear exchange between the US and Russia. That's what World War III means. India and Pakistan having a nuclear exchange will only result in the annihilation of one nation. It will not cause a global war unless other nations choose to step in, which most likely won't happen. Right? India and China having a nuclear exchange. Once again, the US won't get involved, Russia most likely won't get involved. And we don't have such large nuclear arsenal, so it won't really destroy the world. The only scenario which destroys the world is if the US and Russia go to war. So that is World War III. And today, Ukraine could be a flashpoint, but Ukraine is kind of being managed. And there's always some provocation and some kind of escalation here and there, but it's being managed. So I think the possibility of World War III is less right now, and I'm glad it is less. Will India achieve its economic goals even if there's regime change? Well, it depends on what kind of regime change there is. If there is electoral regime change, which means the next election brings in a different political party or coalition, well, that's an internal regime change, right? It's not an external regime change like what happened in Bangladesh or Pakistan, which was essentially a coup done by the US. So if there is a democratic regime change, then the people's aspirations will be met. And yeah, if there is a change of political dispensation, which means the BJP is not in power in 2029 or wherever, then there'll be a change of policies, and maybe the new government will bring the economy down. It's possible. In which case, India will not achieve its economic goals, but then the people would have voted for not achieving their economic goals, I would say. So regime change has multiple meanings. Regime change actually essentially means that somebody else from outside is doing a coup and changing your regime from outside. If that happens, God forbid, then India is finished. Because whoever is strong enough to execute a regime change operation in India is going to be not a well-wisher of India, right? In which case, India is doomed. So we don't want that to happen. And if it happens, India will not achieve any of its economic goals. GGEZS says, how to set goals properly in any digital app? Well, it depends on what app you use. I don't use any digital apps for setting goals. I use pen and paper. So I don't know. I'm sure there are lots of digital. The problem with digital apps is that, you don't have ready access to it any given moment in time. If you have paper, then you can take the paper anywhere. You can put it out on demand. In a digital app, you have to take the device with your cell phone or whatever, unlock the cell phone, then find the app, open the app. Probably you've logged into the app, and then you have to find the thing. It's a pretty there's a lot of friction, between what you want to see and how long it takes to see it. And then I don't know what are the popular apps right now. There are calendar apps and list apps and to-do list apps and goal setting apps. And so I don't know. It depends on the architecture of the app and the functionality and all that. Yeah. So overall, it how to set goals will depend on the app itself. Every app will have its own way of setting goals. Animesh Paul says, as India rises economically and strategically, how can it navigate growing pressure from major powers, protect its interests, and sustain progress without compromising autonomy or long term goals? As we rise, as we grow economically and militarily, there's going to be more pressure, like you say, Animesh, from major powers, because nobody wants a new power to rise. The existing powers, even though they may be competing against each other, even though they may have adversarial relations with each other, they will agree that they don't want more such powers to rise. So US, China, Russia, they'll say, okay, let it be US, China, and Russia. We don't want a fourth power to rise, and so on. So there's going to be pressure from the world to against India to keep India down. So what does India do in this situation? One thing we can do is that we have to understand not everybody is against us. There are lots of these small nations, downtrodden nations that actually would be very happy to see India rise, because we are a civilization that has never exploited others. We have never bullied others. So we are not a threat to anybody, right? So all the African nations, all the small nations here, there, everywhere, they would love to see India rise. So we need to take them along with us. We need to have good relations with them. We need to have a good outreach with them. We need to have diplomacy ongoing on a daily basis with these nations. And we need to invest in these nations wherever possible, do trade with them. If they have resources that we need, we can help them set up factories which will generate employment, and we will get the resources and we will give them a fair price for that sort of thing. So we can all rise and grow together, that sort of thing. That's one thing we can do. The second thing is that our economic growth needs to be non-negotiable. There can be no compromise about it. We have to keep on growing economically at 6, 7, 8%, whatever is possible per year. And the right way to do that is through manufacturing. The age of the services industry and the IT industry may soon be a thing of the past. We have to become a manufacturing power. We have to replace China as the world's manufacturing center. And to do that, we will need some reforms, a certain set of reforms the government will have to do. So that's non-negotiable. We have to keep on growing economically, and with economic growth will come military growth. And in the military growth sphere, we have to be very, very clear that we have to make our arms procurement as indigenous as possible. Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? See, our success in Operation Sindoor, the 3-day war, goes, a lot of it can be attributed to Make in India. The Akash system is made in India, and various other systems that we used were made in India. So the world has now stood up and taken notice of our arms industry, and we need to take it further to the next level. We need to become indigenous and self-sufficient in all arms procurement. If we do these things, then we will be in a good position, and we will be able to sustain progress without compromising autonomy or long-term goals. Ankita, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Biplav Dutta, thank you very much. Darshan Patel says, I took my French exam recently, but I stumbled a little. Can you give me some hope and tips? I'm feeling down about how it went. I'm at B1 level. Okay, I'm not sure what a B1 level is. I've never taken any levels in French. I know French because I lived in a French-speaking country for a certain number of years as a kid. So my French is no longer as good as it used to be. It's been a long time since I had a proper conversation in French. So I did not ever learn French formally. I just absorbed it from everybody around me. When you're a kid, you learn very fast. So what tips can I give you? Look, if you want to learn a language well, you have to immerse yourself in the environment of that language, which means that you have to spend a certain amount of time every day just thinking and speaking in that language, in the target language, French. And you have to be very diligent at it. Initially, you have to absorb as much vocabulary as possible, and the way to absorb vocabulary is not to memorize words, but to use them in whatever way you can. So that's how we do it. And ideally, you should find somebody else who can speak the language, and then you can converse with that person a certain amount of time every day. And then every exam will have its own peculiarity, so you have to find out what's the pattern of the exam and all that. My point is, everything is possible with with the right amount of diligence and practice and all. I'm sure you will get much better. Beyond that, I'm not sure what tips I can give you, because I don't know what a B1 level means. Yeah. But yeah, practice, immerse yourself a certain amount of time every day. The best way to learn a language is by immersion. And yeah, so all the best, sir. All the best. Narendra, thank you very much. 27, returning to India, want to start a business for India's future. What would you do if you were in my place? I'm eyeing solar plants. What are the businesses of the future? How would you contribute to the manufacturing sector? Hmm. So you are 27 years old. You're returning to India. Well, big step, and you want to start a business in manufacturing. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for doing this, and I would like to wish you the best at the very beginning. Now, you're eyeing solar plants. I think solar plants is a pretty reasonably, you could say, is a reasonably high tech thing to do. India needs solar power. India has a tremendous amount of sunlight, so it makes sense to start a business in solar plants. Makes a lot of sense. What are the businesses of the future? Well, the businesses of the future are businesses that have to do with technology, with power generation. So it could be solar power, it could be lithium, it could be in the future sodium ion batteries, which could be the next step after lithium, after the world moves on from lithium. But that's something that is in the research and development phase right now. And if you want to have a profitable business, you don't want to go into R&D right now. I can Obviously it doesn't make sense. So forget about sodium ion batteries. So lithium ion batteries, obviously that is an industry of the future, a business of the future. Uh, what else? Anything to do with AI and automation and robotics. India needs, India's space program is poised to take off. So anything that can be connected to manufacturing components for rockets or satellites, that could be a thing. But I'm not sure it's going to be there in high demand, because only a few rocket launches per year at this point. We're not launching hundreds of rockets per year. In the future, it may happen, but we are still not there yet. Uh, Drones and military equipment is very much a business of the future. India needs a tremendous amount of military equipment. Whether it's missiles, whether it is parts of aircraft, whether it is parts for tanks or howitzers or guns or arms or ammunition, all of that is needed. That's always going to be an evergreen business, especially considering the kind of neighborhood India has. Drones, obviously, whether it is surveillance drones, whether it is kamikaze drones. So anything to do with defense is going to be an evergreen industry. It's going to be, and because of the technological race, you're going to need more and more high tech systems in place. So that's a business of the future. Then anything that can solve the problems of people. Um, and automate things and all that. So AI and robotics. So these are some of the businesses I can think of, and I think solar plants is a great place to start off with. So it makes sense to invest in solar plants. In the future, you'll also have nuclear energy, but obviously that's a very niche thing. Modular nuclear reactors and stuff. So I think solar plants is a great business. It's a great industry to get into. So Narendra, all the best. I really appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you nothing but success. Hardik Joshi says, how do you think marriage as a concept in India will change given the rise in prosperity and economic westernization in India? Is there a correlation? I think India is showing signs of going down the road the West has gone down. Today, I mean, historically, people would get married and they would not have any girlfriends and boyfriends and 20 different affairs and 50 different partners and stuff. But that's increasingly the norm these days, it looks like, especially in urban centers. Live in relationships and it fails and you move on to somebody else, that sort of thing. Um, Traditionally, we were never like that. We were never a promiscuous society. And today, it's becoming the norm. So we are absorbing this kind of lifestyle from the West. It's nothing to do with the rise of prosperity. India was super prosperous in the past. India accounted for at least a third of the world's GDP for the longest part of history. And we were never a promiscuous society back then. So a rise in prosperity is not necessarily something that will end marriage. It is the absorption of Western culture into Indian society that will possibly create problems in the institution of marriage. Um, yeah, so right now, I think that especially in urban places, urban centers, there's a rise in divorce cases, a rise in breakdown of marriages, rise in promiscuity, all of that. All of this, there's a correlation with the westernization of India. Not economic westernization of India, but sociological, societal, cultural westernization of India. We are becoming deracinated. Our education system doesn't teach us about our culture. Our most people, you know, every single generation that passes becomes more and more deracinated. So in most families, increasingly it's the case in many families, especially in urban cities, urban centers, that parents aren't connected to their culture, and that's why children are even more alienated from their culture. And that's why the only culture that's available is the Western culture, because it's all over the media and so on and so forth. So you become like that. So it's a growing trend in India, and that could destroy the institution of marriage. And then you can have, I suppose, like in the US, most mothers will be single mothers, and that's a disaster for any society. So I hope we don't go down that road, but it looks like we are. Saint Crocodile says, how did Vedic culture start? We have no idea. We have portions of the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest literature known to humankind. And the earliest Vedic culture is said to be the culture from our ancestral culture from the time of the Rig Veda. It was a very different India back then. A very different Bharat. It was not an urban civilization. It was a rural, pastoral civilization, and the population density of the subcontinent would have been much lower than what it is today. We don't know. We don't quite know when the Rig Veda was written. Some people say it's 1500 BC. Those who believe in the Aryan invasion myth, I would say it's closer to 6000 BC, maybe even before that. And before that, there would have been a pre-Vedic culture, the proto-Vedic culture, and that would go back more than 10,000 years, possibly. We don't quite have a good idea of the dates. The dates that are put forth by various researchers vary wildly. Some people say it's 30,000 BC, some people say it's 1500 BC, and so on. So the huge variance is there. So we don't quite know. How did it start? Well, how it started is because about 70,000 years ago, there was a migration out of Africa and people settled in India, and they formed what would eventually become the Vedic culture. Those are our ancestors. Ankita, thank you very much once again. Thank you. Geopolitical Dubey, thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Stark Vincent says, I live and work in the US. My co-workers and my manager are from Pakistan. Ever since the war, it's been hard to manage the relationships. Any advice? It's very simple. Be professional. Just be professional. You don't need to have a personal relationship with these individuals. And if the situation isn't good, and if it becomes hard for you to keep working in that job, find a different job. That's what I would say. Oftentimes it's the case that you spend the most part of your life at work. So those people who are your co-workers, they become your friends and social circle. That's often the case. It may not be supposed to be like that, but it often becomes the case. And if all your co-workers are Pakistani origin people, your manager is Pakistani origin, then it could certainly be a problem. So advice number one, as far as possible, just keep it purely professional. Keep all personal things out of the relationship. And if it is not a viable long-term option, switch jobs. That's what I can say. Yeah, it's a problem when you are surrounded by people from Pakistan, people of Pakistani origin. So I have in the past worked in the US. I had Pakistanis. I don't remember a single Pakistani, but I knew a lot of Pakistani taxi drivers. So it depends on which industry you're in. I'm not saying you are from that industry, but yeah. So all I would say is try and keep it professional, and if it doesn't work, maybe you should find a different job. Okay, all the best, sir. All the best. Rajput Maratha says, tell me about possible Rajput origin of Khandesh people. It's something that I have not looked into, so I would not be able to tell you about the possible Rajput origin of that. Very sorry. Very sorry. Jayendra Itkikar says, one of the biggest internal weaknesses that could prevent India from becoming a major global power by 2047. Greetings from Dehradun. Greetings, sir. The major internal weaknesses. Well, the first major internal weakness is corruption. I think every Indian, the moment I say this, will understand what I mean. Corruption. That's the biggest, one of the top three, possibly number one internal weakness. Second is lack of merit in society, reservations all over the place in government jobs, hopefully not beyond that. That's another problem, right? The third thing is that, the Indian bureaucracy is not being reformed. And a bureaucrat, once you become a bureaucrat, you have a job for life, which means that you can never be sacked. Any Indian government officer, when they are caught for corruption, whenever it happens, you will see that they are suspended. They are not terminated. Suspended means you are put on administrative leave for a number of days or weeks or months, and then you come back to the job. So these are big problems within India. And then you have this. The other biggest internal weakness is the 100 million plus possible foreign infiltrators who live in India. So this is just a small sampling of the big weaknesses we have, and unless we address these problems, we will not rise to the fullest extent of our potential. We may remain a mediocre, not great power. So we have to address these problems. Sudhindra Desai, thank you so much for your contribution, sir. Appreciate it. Inferno says, do you see any similarities between Modi's first term and Trump's second term from the point of view of foreign travel? Context, India's image then, US debt now. I see absolutely no similarities whatsoever. And you don't measure the quality or impact of a prime ministerial term or presidential term based on one metric, which is how much foreign travel happened, what was the total amount of hours spent by the leader traveling abroad. That's not the metric you measure. You look at it, the term, from a different set of metrics, economic growth and the kind of political international relations you have, and the amount of investment that comes into your country, and whether you are achieving your geopolitical, geostrategic objectives or not, and so on and so forth. Modi's first term, Trump's second term. Trump's second term has just started, and he has done only one major foreign trip thus far, which was to the Middle East. So I really don't see how we can compare the two, right? India's image then in US debt now. Once again, how do you compare image with debt? Not sure how you compare. Prabhav says, do you think AI will eat most of the jobs? What will the humans do then, as AI will only be smarter as the time passes? Well, it's a huge problem coming up. AI will eat many of the jobs. Most jobs are, see, most jobs in especially a nation like India and third world countries are unskilled labor. Just repetitive jobs, assembly line manufacturing, and sweeping the floor on the streets or whatever. Very, very repetitive, low skill jobs. AI will eat all of those jobs for breakfast. Everything will be automated at a much lower price than what it costs to hire human employees. So it will make no business sense to burn money on human employees when AI will do the same thing at a much higher quality standard at a much lower cost. So all those jobs will be wiped out by AI. What can humans do then? You have to upskill. You have to acquire skills that can't be replaced by AI. So people are saying in the future content creation will become, will disappear because of AI. I completely disagree. Content creation is the one. I'm just giving one example. Okay, content creation, what I am doing here right now, it's a very human thing. It's the one thing AI can't replace. See, today if you see AI generated videos, most people hate those videos, even though they are very pretty, very high quality, etc. You can somehow tell it's synthetic, it's artificial, and it will never have that human quality, human emotion. So I think one example of a job AI can't replace is content creation. And there'll be some other jobs also. So you have to become AI native. You have to be able to manage AI. I think most jobs in the future will hinge around managing AI systems. So it's essentially like you have AI employees and you manage the employees, you delegate tasks to them, you monitor and supervise what they're doing, you give feedback, and you train them, and so on and so forth. That's what's going to be the future of jobs: managing AI systems, managing AI agents, managing AI employees. So most jobs are going to be like that. And then you're going to have the entry of robotics, AI enabled robotics in industry. So today you have all this low skill labor, that is, let's say you have an Amazon warehouse or a Blinkit warehouse. So when an order comes in, you're given the order, the details, and you're supposed to take those products and pack them in containers, in packages, in parcels, and then stack the shelves and things like that. All of that in the future will be done at a much higher level of competence and quality by AI enabled robotic workers. So you're going to have dark warehouses where you have robots that can see in the dark because of infrared or whatever. Not infrared, maybe ultraviolet, whatever, they can see in the dark. And they will do the work without the need for human intervention with 0% error rates. So once again, the only job that is left then is to manage the AI and robotic workers. So what humans need to do is they have to upskill themselves, they have to become AI native, and they have to learn how to interact with AI and how to manage AI. And some jobs obviously will never go away. As of now, construction jobs, right now we don't have construction robots, right? We don't have robots that build bridges and build railway networks, railway tracks, and lay down roads and so on. So those jobs will remain, but eventually down the line, even those could be replaced by robotics. So we'll have to see. So the main thing is we have to keep on evolving and adapting and learning. Nanda Kishore Rao says, is it safe to live 30 feet from a phone tower? If not, what's the safe distance, especially for elders? Please guide me. Wanted to buy a plot. I've never looked into this. I don't know. It is said that, the higher the frequency, the more dangerous it can be for living beings. So I would say, just to be safe, live at least 100 feet from a phone tower. Yeah. I've not really looked into the matter myself. I mean, we all have radio signals, phone signals right next to us because of the devices we carry. But phone towers, they have much higher output in terms of wattage, the power output. So I'm not sure what effect it has on humans. I've never really done the calculations and looked into it. But I would say, just to be safe, keep at least 100 feet distance, just to be safe. Hardik Joshi says, excuse me, as a physicist, how accurate or true is Vedic astrology? Look, I have no idea. I have never studied Vedic astrology. I've not studied any form of astrology. Uh, so I cannot tell you how accurate or true it is because I have zero knowledge or competence in this matter. Sorry. Sushant, first of all, thank you very much. Namaste. I came across your Genghis Khan video 4 years ago and have been learning from you ever since. I'm a much more confident and wiser version of myself. Thank you for everything. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your contribution. Thank you. Vision of Hindu Rashtra. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Jaydev Thakur says, truly inspired by a fearless clarity. Thank you. I've been trying to invite you to our hotel Seven Sky in Bhuj, Kutch. It would be a blessing if you could visit someday. Tried many ways to reach out. How to reach? Look at the description portion of this video, the description. In that, my email ID is there. So if you want to email me, you can email me there. I would love to come to Bhuj. And thank you so much for the invitation. I think it's an honor and a privilege. I would love to come and meet you in Bhuj. Never been to Bhuj. I hear it's a beautiful part of our country. I would love to visit. So please email me. My email ID is there in the description of this video. Just find it and email me, and I'd love to, come there. It'll be an honor for me. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Aris Manticore says China is developing its 6th generation fighter jets variants with AI. Of course, they'll do it. They'll do it, and so should we. So the point is, we should not be left behind. If the Chinese are doing it, others are also doing it. We should not be left behind. Ideally, we should be at the forefront of this field, but at least we can catch up. So yes, India should take cognizance of this matter, and India should make sure that we also take the necessary steps. Aris Manticore says, should we leverage India's consumers and start investing in absolute recycling technology? If we push enough, we should be close to self-sufficiency. Uh, Absolute recycling technology. I think we should start with basic recycling technology. For example, if you go to any metropolitan area today, that's a big population. Even medium-sized towns in India have large populations. So each population center is going to produce waste, garbage, junk, right? Trash. And sometimes in some of these cities and towns, they're going to ask you to segregate the waste: wet waste, dry waste, plastic waste, this waste, that waste. So you segregate everything as a citizen, and then the municipality will take it away. And then what you find is that they will dump everything in the same place again. They're just putting on a show. One hears such stories sometimes. Okay, I'm not saying it's happening everywhere. I'm sure there are places where it's done properly, but many municipalities, one hears, are not doing enough, or rather not doing anything possibly when it comes to recycling. Just take all the trash and dump it in a landfill, and just let the landfill grow in size and become a mountain, and there's no recycling done. In many places one hears that that sewage is dumped into rivers. Untreated sewage goes into rivers, or perhaps into the ocean sometimes, depending on where you are. I'm not saying everywhere it's the case. I'm sure there are places where it's done properly. My point is, let's start with basic recycling. Let's treat all the sewage before it's thrown into any water body, for example, whether it's running water or stagnant water. Let's treat all sewage. Let's recycle as much as possible all the trash. And once we can start doing that properly, in every part of the country, then we can, maybe invest in better recycling technology. And absolute recycling means you are recycling absolutely everything, so nothing goes to waste and everything is repurposed. So if you have metal, all the metal is extracted and reused, and so on and so forth. And a lot of the electronic waste today has, you know rare earths and whatnot, so that can be recycled if we can find a way to extract it. So if we do that, then we could be close to self-sufficiency for sure. We could be significantly closer to our end goal of self-sufficiency. Vinay Joshi says, podcast on Brainwash Republic with Neeraj Atri ji. Okay, I haven't done that, but I'd be very happy to consider it in the future. Yes. Prashant P says, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Ayush says, what happened to Russia, the recent deal with Pakistan? I hear some rumors of Russia doing some kind of manufacturing deal with Pakistan, steel or something. I'm not sure how true it is. Sometimes the media likes to create stories. So I've heard of this. I have not seen any indication that this is actually a true thing. In case it's true, then maybe we need to take this up with Russia. But thus far, I'm not sure if it is true. Okay, let's do a very quick Google search and see if there is any new information on this. Russia deal with Pakistan. Russia deal with Pakistan. Let's see. Putin shocks India. Tensions with India. Pakistan makes. Russia dismisses Pakistan media reports. See, looks like this news came from Pakistani media. So news on air, is it? Oh, it's an AI. Okay, this is a government website which explains the quality. Russia dismisses Pakistani media reports of Moscow's plan to expand economic ties with Islamabad. These media reports, Russia says, are fake, which claim that Moscow is expanding economic ties with Islamabad, including plans to jointly set up steel mills in Karachi. The reports stemmed from a May 13 meeting between Harun Akhtar Khan, special assistant to Pakistan's prime minister, and Russian envoy Denis Nazirov. Moscow firmly denied any stated multi-billion-dollar deal, accusing elements of Pakistan of trying to disrupt the strong India-Russia strategic partnership, especially after India's recent Operation Sindoor targeting terror camps in Pakistan and POK. A senior Russian official called the reports exaggerated and said they aim to sensationalize ties that do not exist at such a scale. So, from this news report on EIR, it looks like it is fiction. So, I think what we should do is we should wait and watch and see how the story evolves. If it is true, then the truth will come out, right? But often these stories are planted just to create friction between two countries. Yatin Kumar says, how long can the US stay strong while debt is rising? The US will stay strong while debt is rising as long as it has the world's most powerful military and they have the kind of power projection ability they have today. See, the world accepts the US dollar as the default currency because of US military power projections, which is something most people can't see. But it's something that nations are acutely aware of. So the US has power projection abilities all across the world. They have more than 700 extraterritorial military bases, and that is how they enforce the rule of the US or the role of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. As long as that is enforced, the debt doesn't matter because the debt will have to be repaid in US dollars only, right? So they can just print dollars and repay the debt. It'll obviously mess up the global market and create inflation everywhere. But yeah, if it comes to that, they can do it. So as long as their military might dominates, they'll be able to stay strong. Arpan Patel says, why are the left-wingers, especially the Indian left-wing academicians, so keen on proving that Aryans did not originate in India? Interesting question. I was discussing this with somebody today. Aryan invasion. It's been a long time since I've really paid a lot of attention to that. In 2016 or 17, I was one of the first people to write a comprehensive article debunking the Aryan invasion myth. Now the question, okay, let's find that, my article, and I'll read out an excerpt from that, which answers your question. So here it is. Okay, Aryan invasion myth, Abhijit Chavda. Okay, one second. Let me get my own spelling right. Here we are. The Aryan invasion myth. Where shall we take? Okay, so let's go to Medium. I think this is my old Medium article. Please get rid of this. So this is an article from May 2017. So let me go to it's a very long article. It gives you a comprehensive overview of why this entire theory, Aryan invasion / migration, it's a complete myth, it's a complete lie. I've given you multidisciplinary, multidimensional evidence of that in this article. And now, okay, here is the section that I'm going to read out to you. So I've given all this evidence in 2017, and since then there is more evidence that's come to light. So will the new evidence set the controversy to rest? So here's my answer. The question of the origin of the Indo-Aryans concerns the very idea of India. The mainstream Aryan invasion or migration narrative, which portrays Indo-Aryan or Hindu culture as hegemonic, racist, intolerant, rapacious, and egalitarian, imposes an Indian version of white guilt on people of Indo-Aryan ancestry and engenders deep resentment and a desire to right historical wrongs amongst people of so-called Dravidian and so-called Dalit ancestry, which manifests itself in various forms such as separatism and rejection of Hinduism and Indian culture, among others. And I could have, essentially this Dravidian race thing is also a complete fiction and a complete fabrication of this theory. There is no Aryan or Dravidian race. We are all Indians. So this makes the Aryan invasion theory a powerful political tool which dovetails perfectly with the leftist, secular, and liberal political narrative, as well as with the agendas of Dravidian nationalists, Dalit supremacists, missionaries, separatists, and other Breaking India forces, internal as well as external. As such, it has long been used to neatly divide India into dichotomous categories such as North and South Indians, Aryans and Dravidians, fair-skinned and dark-skinned people, so-called high caste and so-called Dalits, the privileged and the oppressed. It is difficult to overstate how much the Aryan invasion theory has strengthened the leftist narrative, and so on and so forth. The left secular liberal ecosystem derives much of its strength and power from its decades old stranglehold on Indian academia, especially in the humanities, and so on. And so on and so forth. These people, they monopolize academic discourse and marginalize dissenting voices. The leftist clique has ensured that every school, college, and university textbook teaches the Aryan invasion theory. This theory gives the leftist academics the ideal rationale for denigrating Indian culture, exhorting so-called low-caste students to reject Hinduism and rebel against the establishment, encouraging female students to reject Hinduism for being patriarchal and misogynistic, calling into question India's right to exist as a nation, and supporting anti national and separatist movements, all on academic and scholarly grounds. This is the modus operandi by which several generations of unquestioning and impressionable students have been indoctrinated and recruited into the leftist movement. So, the Aryan invasion theory is thus the academic premise underpinning the entire spectrum of methods that the various breaking India forces employ to attack India's culture and undermine India's integrity. It is their trump card. Take it away and they have nothing else left. It is therefore vitally important that for them that this theory remains the dominant narrative in India, and so on. You can read the article. So as you can see, that's why these people are so keen on proving that Aryans did not originate in India. It's a complete lie, but it is their trump card. Rahul Dayal, thank you so much. Thank you very much, sir. Aries Manticore says, do we need to be a more strict, disciplined, and more ruthless society like that of China? The world not only belittles them, but fears them as well. We need to raise our standards. What is the meaning of raising your standards? Being more disciplined, being stricter with standards, being more ruthless. Don't waste your time over nonsense. Focus and go after what you want. We need to be that. How do you think our society was during the reign of Chandragupta Maurya or Ashok Maurya? Do you think people were the way they are today? No, there was way more discipline. How do you think we were under the rule of Emperor Kanishka? Do you think we were the way we are today? It was a more disciplined society. Under the rule of Kumaragupta or Chandragupta the First or Skandagupta or Samudragupta, do you think India was a nation of Jugad and Chalta hai? India was not that way. So we have to evolve into a much more disciplined society, a more focused society, a society of much higher standards. Only then will we achieve our objectives. To hell with what the world thinks and cares. I don't care what the world thinks of us. We have objectives of our own, and we must achieve those objectives. Let the world say whatever it wants. It doesn't matter. So for that, we have to become more disciplined. We have to become a more organized, more ruthless, a stricter society, stricter with our standards, and so on. K. Impersonator says, opinions on Imran Khan's politics and jail time. Look, Imran Khan was a great leader in the field of sports. One of the greatest sports people the Pakistan produced, one of the greatest all-rounders, and so on. Great fast bowler, great batsman, great captain, and he had the leadership qualities. And after he retired, he became a politician. And I remember seeing an interview of him on BBC about 15 years ago, in which he was saying that we don't want Western money. Western money is poison money because you've used this money to control us and to do whatever you've done with us, that sort of thing. It's poison money. We don't need your money. We need to be independent from the West, that sort of thing. He used to say back then. Then when he got the opportunity to become the prime minister, he kissed the ring of the military and became a military puppet. As prime minister, he tried to bring his country closer to China than to the US. And the US then did a regime change operation in the year 2022, which toppled Imran Khan, brought a new puppet to power. And ever since then, Imran Khan has been in prison. That's the long and the short of it. I clearly, you can admire his cricket. He was a great cricketer. As a politician, he had good. What did he have? He had good intentions, I suppose, for his country, not for us. He would have never been a good friend of India. But he had good intentions for his country, I suppose, but didn't work out for him. So turns out he is no different from others. He could not achieve what he wanted to achieve. So see, the only yardstick by which you can measure a leader is whether they succeed or fail. Opinions, I mean, uh, their objectives, their intentions don't matter. Oh, he had good intentions. I don't care. The only yardstick by which you measure a leader's performance is the output, is what they're able to achieve or not, whether they succeed or fail. Okay, Akshar says if we develop advanced engines for our missiles like Agni, the HSTDV, etc., hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicle, etc., then why is it so difficult? What is so difficult about developing the Kaveri engine? Very different set of technologies. So we have outstanding missile engines, Agni, the hypersonic engine, supersonic scramjet engines, ramjet, in the case of the BrahMos, and so on. The Kaveri engine is a different beast. See, a rocket engine or a missile engine is the same thing, and it's a much more simpler system than a turbofan engine, which is the Kaveri engine. So, in a turbofan engine, you have, these blades, the blades that are part of the turbofan. These blades have to be made of some kind of substance that can withstand incredibly high pressures and temperatures. So the temperatures could be in excess of 1500, maybe in excess of 2000 degrees Celsius at times. And your turbine blades need to be able to withstand those temperatures and perform well in those temperatures. And they need to be able to withstand these temperatures for hours at a time. Right? So ideally, you want an engine to be overhauled only once 100 hours or something. After 100 hours of flight time, you can initially have a lower standard, maybe 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours. Eventually, it should be 100 hours. So when it comes to temperatures like 2000 degrees Celsius, most metals melt at these temperatures. Right? So how do you manufacture turbine blades that can withstand temperatures that most metals will melt at? All metals will melt. Let's quickly see what's the melting point of steel and so on and so forth. For example, melting point of steel. What's the melting point? 1300 to 1500 degrees, right? But in the case of a jet engine, you will have higher temperatures. And melting point of iron, I mean, you don't use iron in jet engines and so on. So the point is, even if you use alloys, they will only work well if they are made from a single metallic crystal. And those single metallic crystals also need to have, certain holes in them so that gas can pass and cool the thing. So it's a very complicated thing, and the Western countries have been able to develop this technology over decades of experimentation. And we have had a stop-start program in the Kaveri engine. Some governments will fund it for a few years, then stop it for a few years, then start again for a few years, and again stop it. That's not how we develop a jet engine. So that's why it is so difficult. But right now, I think we have a reasonably good Kaveri engine with I don't know how many kilonewtons of thrust, maybe around 50 to 70 kilonewtons of dry thrust. I think we can start using that in some aircraft. As long as it's reliable, I'm sure it is. And then slowly, iteratively make it a more powerful version of the engine. It takes time. It takes decades. It takes generations for this to happen. So what India needs to do is purchase jet engine technology at whatever price from whoever, maybe France, maybe Russia, maybe whoever. And at the same time, keep on developing the Kaveri engine in parallel. That's what needs to happen. Okay, Akshar says, why doesn't ISRO or Indian space startups develop super heavy lift rockets? If money is scarce, why don't our billionaires fund such startups? I don't know why. See, ISRO, the engineers and scientists at ISRO, I'm sure they would love to develop a heavy lift rocket. But the money has to come from the government, right? The go-ahead has to be given, the approval has to be given from the government of India. The government of India doesn't seem to see this as to regard this as a big priority for India. So we still have the little PSLV. We are very proud of the PSLV. It's a great rocket. It's a little rocket in the grand scheme of things. The GSLV, or whatever it's called these days, it's got a new name these days, LM large, whatever it's called. It's also a medium, at best a medium lift rocket. Even now we are forced to have sometimes the Aryan rocket lift certain satellites to space because our GSLV or whatever it's called now can't lift it. We're still in that situation where we sometimes have to depend on foreign launch providers. Sometimes even SpaceX is taking Indian rockets, Indian spacecraft or satellites into orbit. So I just don't know why we are not doing this. Why isn't the government giving ISRO the direction, the order to develop more powerful rockets? I hear that some programs are underway, which will take another 10-20 years to come to fruition, maybe 5 years, 10 years. Why don't we have a heavy lift rocket by today? I just don't get it. Why aren't we developing reusable rocket boosters? Rocket boosters that can land themselves. Why SpaceX did that I don't know how many, 20 years ago. What are we doing? I just don't get it. We seem to have zero ambition when it comes to space. And if we get left behind in space, then we will be relegated by the end of the century to a backwater of the world. Billionaires will look at their own business and industry, right? They will look at their own bank balance. They will invest in something only if it makes economic sense from the perspective of an investor. So that's why it's the government that needs to take these things up, especially in certain sectors where investors will come in only at a later stage. Initially, the government has to take the risk of investing in these things because it's a national security imperative, right? So yeah, Sergeant Skyland says middle income trap. Okay, which question was that? Okay, yeah, it was something to do with India's GDP. Okay, got it. Thank you. Bhavik Vadhera says, I am 23 years old, working in Canada currently as a superstore manager. I make good money, but I feel trapped at this job. Please advise. Look, my friend Bhavik, first of all, you're 23 years old. Okay? A lot of people would give anything to be 23 years old. You're just starting off in life. You have a long, long, long way ahead of you. You're just starting. First of all, you need to realize that. Secondly, I am so happy to hear that you're making good money. Now, you're feeling trapped in the job. You need advice. Here's my advice. You're just starting off. First of all, take that into cognizance. Number two, the good money that you're making, save as much of it as possible. As much of it as possible. Ideally, more than 50% of it. Just save it. You can invest it if possible, but no high risk investments. Do this for, 2-3 years, if possible, until you're 20. Do it for 2 or 3 years until you have a good stash of money. Then you can move out of the job and maybe invest in something, maybe start your own business if you have entrepreneurial aspirations or tendencies and the skills for that. And if you have that, then you should learn how to be an entrepreneur, which means you need to take some business classes or something. So that's what you should do. You're very young, you're unhappy in the job, but the job is making good money. So just slog for a while, 2-3 years, save the money, save as much as possible. Then that asset that you will gain at the end of 2-3 years, you can deploy it somewhere else to serve you. See, what buys you freedom is money. Money doesn't buy you happiness necessarily, but without money, there's no happiness. Money buys you freedom. So once you have a decent stash of money at your disposal, then you'll be free to do whatever you want with your time, with your life. So I would say, don't be discouraged. There are lots of people who slog for decades and decades before making decent money. So just save the money, and then you can decide how to redeploy it at a more suitable time. Sudhindra Desai, first of all, thank you very much, sir. I am currently in hospitality for currently working in the hotels industry for a year in the US. I wish to go to Japan and work there for a few years, but my ultimate ambition is to become a diplomat. How can I achieve that? Well, if you want to become a diplomat, first of all, I'm not sure what country you're a citizen of. If you are a citizen of India, then the only way to become a diplomat is to do the UPSC thing, go the UPSC route, which means that you have to pass the UPSC exam in India. And if you achieve a certain score, you can go into the Indian Foreign Services. And then you have a certain training period in the government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, and that's how you eventually become a diplomat. I'm not sure if there is lateral entry right now in the Indian Foreign Services. If there's going to be lateral entry in the future in the Indian Foreign Services, it will not be in the position of a diplomat, but maybe in an advisory or consultative role in the future. So the way to become a diplomat in India, an Indian diplomat, is to give the UPSC exam, pass it, crack it, and then get into the Ministry of External Affairs. That's the only way to do it if you are Indian. If you are American, then they have their own procedure. They have a lot. They have much. They have the world's largest diplomatic uh, corps in the world. So if you are an American citizen, well, then it's much easier to become a diplomat if you have, as long as you have certain skills. So skills could be linguistic skills. If you can speak a good Japanese, then you can become a diplomat in Japan, and so on. So yeah, it depends which citizenship you have. If it's an Indian citizenship and you want to become a diplomat, then you have to come back to India, study for the UPSC exam, and then crack it, and then get it. It's a very, very uh, high risk thing, and there's a very low probability of success. But if you are really good at it, and if you are super determined, you can do it. Yeah, so that's the only way you can do it if you are an Indian citizen. But if it's not at the top of your list of priorities, then yeah, go to Japan, work there. Wonderful place, one of my favorite countries in the world. And yeah, you can make a career in the hospitality industry, possibly, if that is another option that you see for yourself. So, anyway, all the best. Dheeraj Kamath says, a few hours back, sorry, I saw a video from some Indian news outlet claiming that India did lose a few aircraft against Pakistan. Are these channels deliberately trying to have us lose the narrative war? The problem is not these Indian channels, the problem is the Indian Chief of Defense Staff, who went and gave an interview to, I think, Bloomberg, an American channel, in which I'm not sure what exactly he said, but it is being interpreted by most Indian and international observers as an admission that India may have lost at least one aircraft in the 3-day war. I don't understand why the Chief of Defense Staff has to go and give an interview to a foreign channel. How does it serve India's national interest? And if he does give an interview to a foreign channel, why make statements claiming this or that or whatever, that even if we lost, let's say, an aircraft or two or whatever, why make the admission in case he has made the admission? I'm not sure what is going on and why this is happening, and then everybody will obviously take advantage of this. Look, to put it in perspective, losing an aircraft or two in a war is no big deal. The Americans are engaged in a military operation against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Houthis are a rebel force, according to the West itself. And while being engaged in military operations against a group of rebels, the Americans lost 2 F-18 fighter planes. Now, is the world trying to say that the Americans have lost the war to the Houthis? Nobody's trying to say it. But when it comes to India, Pakistan, they are trying to claim, first of all, that India lost whatever number of fighter planes, allegedly. And then, and secondly, that it means that India has somehow lost the war. Both are nonsensical claims. So what can I say? My main thing is, why does the Indian Chief of Defense Staff have to give an interview to Bloomberg, an American channel, and then make whatever statements he made? I just don't understand it. It is incomprehensible to me. I just don't understand what's going on. What are you trying to achieve? I don't get it. So more than these TV channels, I would ask myself, what is our Chief of Defense Staff trying to do? What is he trying to achieve? Big questions over here. I'm flabbergasted. I don't have any answers at this point. Don't get it. Venkat Gowdas, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Karthik Bhatt says, there are no more Nazis today because the Nazi ideology has been exposed and put to rest. Do you see a similar thing happening with Islamic terror, or would geopolitical forces, are they going to use it forever? And what's the role of India? Um, Look, Nazi ideology, there are Nazis even today, first of all. There is this neo-Nazi movement in various parts of Europe. I'm not sure if it's a very well-known thing, but there is a neo-Nazi movement in Germany. There's a neo-Nazi movement in Ukraine, very much so. There are many Nazis in Ukraine. Zelensky brought a former Nazi armed forces, person who served in the armed forces, to the Parliament of Canada. And the Canadian MPs all stood up and applauded this Nazi. So there still are Nazis today. Many of these Nazis are not in jail. Many of them are young. Many of them want to revive the Nazi movement. A lot of the Ukrainian population is still Nazified, and so on. So, it's impossible to completely end any ideology as long as it has favor among the people. Now, when it comes to what you're talking about, well, Islam is either the first or the second most popular religion in the world, right? Let's find out what's the number of practicing Muslims in the world. Let's go to Google and find out. Largest religions in the world, right? Largest religions in the what happened? Religions. The largest religion is Christianity. It's followed by Islam and Hinduism. So Christianity has 2.6 billion followers and Islam has 2.0 billion followers. Hinduism is 1.2. Buddhism is half a billion, and so on. So look, if certain people would like to engage in the practice of terrorism while ascribing it to a certain religion, which happens to be the second largest religion in the world, there's nothing the world can do about it, right? So yeah, I don't see such tendencies of using any religion as the basis of doing terrorism. I don't see such tendencies ever dying out. And when such tendencies exist, geopolitical forces will certainly want to use them. So it is what it is, and it's not going anywhere. UC says, Namaste, which airline do you like? Air India. I would love to love Air India. I would love to. But Air India standards need a lot of improvement for sure, right? The airline I use the most when I travel within India is most likely Indigo. I've used Air India also quite often, and internationally, whichever is available, I will take it. I would love to use Air India for everything, but they really need to do something about their standards, the quality. I know it's a long process. It's not the fault of whoever is in charge right now, but we need to see a visible improvement, and I hope that happens. I would love to see our airline, national airline, as being one of the best in the world. Khajoro Bitathon says, out of the 5 sovereign nations, India is the only one that is not a surveillance state. Is this a disadvantage? Thoughts on the East German Stasi? So out of the 5 sovereign nations, one is the US, absolute police state, no question about it, surveillance state, 24/7. Second is China, absolute police state, absolute surveillance state. Russia, it also is kind of it's not a police state to the extent of Russia or of the US or China, but yes, you have a significant police presence and there is surveillance for sure. Israel, very militarized society, a lot of surveillance. India, the absolute opposite of all these nations, right? We are the only sovereign nation out of the 5 which is not a police state, where the police are not in charge of controlling the population, because the population is not a population that needs to be controlled or needs to be bullied. And we don't have the kind of surveillance that we have in all the other nations that we're talking about. Is this a disadvantage? I think it's actually a good thing. We have a big problem in India, which is the illegal infiltrators, maybe 100 million of them. Once we get rid of them, we really don't need to be a surveillance state or a police state. So I think it's a great strength of our society that we function very well as a society, despite not being a police state or a surveillance state. I think it tells you how robust and civilized our society is. So I think it's a great thing. We don't need to be a surveillance state. Thoughts on the East German Stasi? Oh, it was a terrible, terrible thing. It was the Stasi was a state surveillance organization, and it would spy on all East German citizens. It went to such an extent that inside a family you did not know who was spying on whom. It would be maybe that the wife is spying on the husband and the children. Maybe the husband is spying on the wife or the children, or maybe a child is spying on the parents. That's the extent to which they compromise their own society. Terrible. Nobody would want to have that in the country. Terrible, terrible. Shailesh Naik says, now that India has proven its power of air defense, will what will be the updated points of India in Chavda Index? See, the and this is coming out soon now, the Chavda Index. So the way the scores are calculated, it's calculated based on macro factors. What is the amount of military expenditure of a country per year? That's it. You can't take very small granular details into consideration in calculating an index of 191 nations. So it will not make any difference at this point in time in the Chavda Index. The way to make a difference in the Chavda Index is by increasing the military expenditure of India, and by having more nuclear weapons, warheads, and by having a larger GDP, and other things, and some other factors as well. So the air defense factor, it's great, but it doesn't make any difference in the composite score that's calculated, the hard power score. Devour of Worlds says, Abhijit of Clan Chowda, first of his name. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Jaidev Thakkar says, Boj awaits email sent. Thank you so much. I will respond to it as soon as I can. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would love to come to Boj. I would love to. Thank you so much. Ritik Pawar says, Germany's chancellor plans to set up a $500 billion or something to build Europe's strongest military. Are we heading towards part 3 or the trilogy's grand finale? We'll see about that. I hope there is no part 3. I would not want to see a part 3 of the no trilogy. World War 3 you're talking about. Look, they are planning to do this, planning to do that. It's all words. Let's see them actually take the action of spending $500 billion to build a strong military. Then we'll talk. And the Americans spend about $1 trillion a year on their military. So with that in mind, spending $500 billion or pounds in one go is nothing compared to spending $1 trillion a year. So I don't think it's gonna transform Europe into a superpower. And even if they do this, who's gonna control the military? Right? There's no strong leadership in Europe. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's the quality of the leadership that really matters more than anything else. So I hope there is no World War III, and I don't see Europe posing a significant challenge to Russia. And if they do pose a challenge to Russia, and Russia feels the heat, Russia is very capable of taking very, very strong military action, which would take us towards World War III. So I hope it doesn't happen. Yeah. Akshar says, why do you think we did not pound Pakistan for 2 or 3 days more? Would the US really have sanctioned us if we delayed the cessation of firing for 2 or 3 days? Look, the fact that we stopped or we paused the military action before we achieved our objectives indicates that some kind of very serious threat came to us from the US. What the threat was, we don't know. It will not be revealed in public. But the Americans did use some form of leverage against us, which forced us to stop the military operation. So I don't know what leverage or what threats they used, but they worked because the US is way more powerful than India. So that's why we stopped, and we did not pound Pakistan for 2 or 3 days more. I was hoping that we would take POK or some part of it, and we were very much in a position to do that if this thing continued for another 2 days. But yeah, the Americans came in the way, and whatever threats they used, whatever leverage they used, worked. We don't know what they used. ZZ says, what would happen if the BJP got 400 seats in the election? I would imagine that if the BJP got 400 seats, then it would have been a much more proactive government, and huge reforms possibly could have happened, which haven't happened this time. So, yeah. Sai says, if Pakistan gives POK illegally to China, what can we do? At this point in time, we cannot do much. At this time, not much. So the only solution to all our problems is to get much more stronger than what we are today. Shubhra Mishra says, first of all, thank you. Do you think the crypto fund supported by the US to Pakistan will make tracing terrorism funding more difficult? What are the long-term effects? The Trump family, the Trump business empire, has significant dealings in cryptocurrency, and they are investing in Pakistan, and Pakistan is setting up its own cryptocurrency fund. So this will certainly make tracing terrorism more difficult, right? Cryptocurrency is untraceable. You can't really trace who did, who spent how much on what. It's completely anonymous on the ledger, and yeah. So if the Trump family is investing in cryptocurrency initiatives in Pakistan, it raises a lot of red flags for me. And this makes, investing in terrorism very easy and very anonymized. So the long-term effects of that is that it looks like they believe in the long-term future of Pakistan, and they want to see this nation continue to exist, and they want to strengthen the nation, and strengthen it in such a way that the terrorism industry can continue to exist, and its actual funders can remain safely and securely anonymous. So it tells you that this initiative is not good for India, and it's going to cause more frictions between India and the United States. Okay, pre-LTP says, why globally all democracy has two major parties with two opposition parties as in counterintelligence? Why did the government sell HAL to Farnese? Okay, why globally all democracies have two major parties? I don't think it's globally like that. In the UK, you have two or three parties. In France, I'm not sure how many parties you have. In the US, you have two parties. In Pakistan, you have what? Pakistan is not a democracy, so let's not discuss Pakistan at all. So globally, I think only India is a genuinely robust democracy where you have hundreds of political parties. All other nations are much smaller, first of all, which is why they only have two or three parties. And in many cases, these nations, many of them are not real democracies because despite elections happening, the people don't get to control what happens. Look at Japan. Elections happen every year in Japan. I mean, every few years in Japan. But the fate of Japan is controlled by the US. It is under military occupation, and the foreign policy and military policy is controlled by the US, and so is the economic policy. So elections don't matter. Elections are just an eyewash. So in many countries, democracy is just a sham. And many countries follow the US model or try to emulate that, which once again makes it not really a democracy. So that's just the way the world is. Once you start looking deeper into the world and the way the world is run, you will start to see that much of what we believe to be true is not really true. Why did the government sell HAL to Farnese? Really? Okay, let me Google this very quickly. HAL Farnese. What is HAL? HAL Farnese. Okay, I'm not able to see any such thing over here. Nope, I'm not able to find any such news. I've not heard of this news, so I'm not sure where you got this news. It doesn't look like it's true, or maybe it needs a more detailed investigation. I'm not sure, but I've not heard of it. So, even Lord, first of all, thank you, sir. Do you think the breakdown of race relations in the US will negatively affect Indians? African Americans are generally xenophobic, and whites are feeling threatened and attacked. Look, the US is going down the wrong path. Yeah, race relations are not. There seems to be a kind of breakdown of race relations. Right now, the African American origin people feel super empowered, and there's a big push in the entertainment industry to overrepresent African Americans now, to perhaps compensate for the time, for the decades when where they were underrepresented, and they are apparently being overrepresented everywhere else also, and so on. And many people seem to feel that African Americans allegedly are very xenophobic, and so on. White people may be feeling threatened and attacked. One gets the sense that this is actually true. Yeah, when you see the social media, uh, activities that come out of the US, you get the sense that what even Lord is saying is very much true. Um, so there's a lot of racism on the rise in the US, and much of it seems to be anti-white racism, and there seems to be anti-Indian racism also in the US. There's a rise of anti-Indian racism. Indians for the longest time were completely invisible in the US. They would keep a very low profile. They would stay out of the limelight. They would do their job and keep their heads down. But with the coming to age of you know second generation, third generation Indians who are very vocal and who are very participative in politics, like Vivek Ramaswamy and so on, Indians are becoming very visible. And it's not going down well with many sections of American society who expect Indians to remain invisible and marginalized. And that's why you are seeing a significant uptick of anti-Indian xenophobia and racism, and Hindu phobia as well. So I think if things continue the way they are continuing, then this could negatively affect Indians, and Indians could end up feeling significantly threatened if this continues. Yeah, it could happen. It could go in that direction, and not just and I'm not saying that Indians will feel threatened by African American origin people. I think Indians may end up feeling threatened by everyone at large, including white people and including African Americans, possibly, if things continue the way they're continuing. Yeah, so I hope it doesn't happen, but it doesn't seem to be looking good right now, the way things are going. Harshay says, who will win deadly art of war, Acharya Chanakya or Sun Tzu? What if they existed in today's geopolitical scenario? Well, Sun Tzu did not rule an empire. He did not do a regime change operation in which he defeated an existing empire and brought a new empire and gave birth to a new empire. Sun Tzu did nothing of the sort. Chanakya was a diplomat, and he was a great statesman. He was responsible for the downfall of the Nanda Empire and the very rapid rise and establishment of the Maurya Empire. He was responsible for the mentorship of the great Emperor Chandragupta Maurya, of bringing him out of obscurity and placing him as the Emperor of India. So the achievements, if you put them side by side, it's clear that Vishnugupta Chanakya's achievements dwarf anything Sun Tzu may have done, despite Western propaganda and Chinese propaganda. So I would say Sun Tzu would win the art of war, or whatever you want to call it, right? What if they existed in today's geopolitical scenario? Well, it would be an interesting time if they did exist today. And I would say if it was the case, then it would be advantage India. Anish, thank you, sir. What are your thoughts on the rumors of India acquiring Bagram and Kandahar air bases? Any truth to it? And is it a good opportunity for our nascent empire to begin power projection? I think any rumors of India acquiring Bagram and Kandahar are just rumors. I don't think that's the case. Why do I not think it's the case? It's because the Taliban are on the US payroll. The Taliban are the government of Afghanistan. They came to power because America handed over the country to the Taliban after negotiating an agreement in the Doha Accord with the Taliban, in which there are some secret clauses. And the Taliban have been ever since been on the payroll of the Americans. It is said that the Taliban is paid between $30 to $100 million in cash per week as a stipend from the Americans. So if that is the case, then the Taliban are taking care of Afghanistan to a certain extent on behalf of the Americans. And they have an understanding, a clear understanding with the Americans, which means that there will be certain red lines the Americans will not want to be crossed. Now, India acquiring Bagram and Kandahar will be a huge red line for the Americans. The Americans don't want India to expand any influence anywhere. They want India to remain where it is. And that's why I think this is just rumors. I don't think India has acquired Bagram or Kandahar. I would be very happy if it was the case, but I doubt it very much. Okay. Amisha, good to see Amisha. North India is heating, climate change is real. Yeah, climate change seems to be real. In many parts of India right now, you have this premature rainy season that has arrived. And it's raining like a month before it should be raining. And in North India at the time, it looks like there's a significant amount of heat wave activity going on. So there's no question about the fact that climate change is real. And the weather is not the way it used to be 30, 40 years ago. So, yes, I agree. Climate change is real. And it's going to be a challenge going forward for the future generations. Jitesh says, do you think India can have the same amount of geopolitical power and success as the US has un- until 2047? So you mean that by 2047 will we have the same amount of geopolitical power and success as the Americans? Not that much. By 2047, I'll be pleased, super pleased if India is number two. I'll be very happy if India surpasses China by number two, but even that is difficult. So India won't, most likely, if things go the way they are going right now, India will be somewhere at number three by 2047, close to China, but not. It won't have surpassed China. If India really exceeds expectations, we could be close to the US, but we will most likely not have the same amount of geopolitical power or a comparable amount of geopolitical power and success as what the Americans have right now by 2047. By 2075, we could be number one. Yeah, if we get things right. Swavichar says, what MBTI type are you and your thoughts? I am myself an INTP. Well. I am INTP. Okay, Cricket Stars 20. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. K. Impersonator says, New Air India JFK to Delhi business class was better than most others I've traveled. They're on schedule to introduce even newer cabins this year. Excited. I'm so happy to hear that. Excellent. So for a change, they have a good business class. Good. Looks like they are making good progress. I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you for letting us know about this. JFK to Delhi business class. That's a long flight. Long flight. Anyhow, if it's comfortable, then it's a good flight. Really now says, is Japan more technologically advanced than the US? Will the Japanese never break the chains? How do they feel about it? The youth, like South Korea, seem disinterested in politics and the military. I would imagine most Japanese are not even aware of the fact that their country is under permanent US military occupation. It's just seen as a normal thing, most likely. Is Japan more technologically advanced than the US? In some cases, in certain technologies and sectors, it is way more advanced than the US. No question about it. But you'll notice, if you are observant, that Japan figures nowhere in the AI or robotics race. Why is that? It's because they have not been allowed to venture into that sector. Otherwise, they would have been ahead of China and the US. So as long as Japan is under permanent US military occupation, they will not be able to break the chains. And the education system in Japan makes sure that most Japanese don't ever realize that they are in chains, and that's so sad, but that's the way it is. RPPL, thank you so much, sir. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says only Odisha resources are sufficient to defeat Bangladesh. No question about it. Orissa, Kalinga is enough to defeat Bangladesh. Rest of India can just watch and applaud. Good job, Kalinga. No question. Advait Mehta says, thoughts on AFD? Are they the new Nazis? I personally don't think they are, with Vidal as their head. AFD, what is AFD? AFD, Alternative for Germany, a far right-wing populist and national conservative political party in Germany. Okay, it's the political party that Elon Musk seems to support, isn't it? Right. And they are called what? Far right, which means that they want Germany to be more independent than what it is. You see, if you are even slightly nationalistic, then you are painted as far right. I don't think they are new Nazis or something. I'm not sure what their exact agenda is, but I do not think that there is any real far right, genuinely far right or Nazi like party in Germany today. I think in India, they would be, you would be, if you're a centrist party, you would be portrayed as far right in Germany today. So I don't think AFD are the new Nazis by any means. ZZ says, what is consciousness according to science? Well, the answer is, according to science, there is no definition of consciousness. Science is currently at a loss to define what consciousness is. Whether it's physics, a physics perspective, or neuroscience perspective, information technology perspective, or whichever other perspective, we don't know how to define consciousness. So consciousness is a phenomenon that is currently beyond the scope of science. We know something exists, but we don't know what it is. We don't even know how to define it. So science doesn't have an answer at this point in time as to what consciousness is. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says Pakistan is a beggar and it's a failed state. What does it offer to the US? Pakistan offers mercenary services to the US. It's like a gunda for hire. Okay? And its utility is that it can keep India off balance when it is paid to do that. So it can unleash terror attacks on India. It can launch cross-border strikes. It can try to push terrorists into India and keep on doing that over and over again as a permanent nuisance and a permanent thorn in India's flesh. That is the value it offers to the US. You see, the US doesn't want India to rise. No existing great power wants a new power to rise, and that's why they want to keep the nation off balance. They want to keep the nation suppressed, and you can use gundas like Pakistan to keep nations like India off balance. So that is the value it offers to the US. Very valuable. K. Impersonator says, India China allied future possibilities or options. It's very difficult for me to see an India China alliance going forward. The Chinese have a whole different worldview. They have a whole different envisioned future for the world. It's a future in which they don't want to see a rising India, a powerful India, and that's why the Chinese and Pakistan. That's what the Chinese and the Americans see eye to eye when it comes to Pakistan. They both want Pakistan to continue existing, and they both want Pakistan to be reasonably strong and resilient against India. So it's very hard for me to see a future scenario in which India and China become kind of allies or even cooperate in a wide range of issues. The Chinese, they don't see India as equals. They're right not to see India as equals because China is about 3.5 times more powerful than India right now. A much larger economy, more advanced technologically, better living standards, better quality of life, better education system, stronger, larger military, and so on and so forth. Why would they see India as an equal? So when you have a nation that you don't see as an equal, then you will want to keep that nation off balance, and you don't want the nation to rise until they become your equal. And that's why they've kept the Tibet border issue open for all these decades. The India-Tibet border, it is still undemarcated because the Chinese want to use that as a pressure tactic and so on. So it's very hard for me to see a future India-China alliance. It would be great if that happens. China is a wonderful civilization, used to be, and we in India had excellent relations with China for 2,000 years. It's only in the last 60, 70, 80 years that things have gone bad because of the Chinese Communist Party's annexation of Tibet, which always was independent. So, yeah, that's the deal. Spade says, came across Hitler's speech, which criticized Jews in power for not openly calling for violence. Said they created state within state to trick masses into feeling like kingmakers when it's in illusion. Heck knew back then. Okay, so I'm not sure if there's a question over here. A lot of old speeches of Adolf Hitler are now coming to light. In the past, nobody had translations of these speeches, but today, because of AI, you can have instantaneous translations into your preferred language, whether it's English or anything else. So today, you can get to actually understand what Hitler was saying. And so people are beginning to revisit Hitler and maybe perhaps see him and his actions and his speeches in a new light. Maybe. And it's a process of, historical rediscovery or whatever it is. So I'm not sure what he is. I have not really bothered to look into his speeches and examine and study what he was saying. So I'm not sure what he may or may not have said. But yeah, it's interesting that this is happening at this point in time. Pranay Kumar says, my mind doesn't let me read 1000-page books. Any tips? My tip is that, you know what? It's not important. It's not necessary to read 1000-page books. It's not for everybody. If your mind doesn't want to do it, don't force it. Play to your strengths. It's not important. It's not necessary for everybody to read gigantic books. Not important. Not necessary. So don't force yourself. You can succeed very well without having to do that. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says, what if Russia intervened and supported India when US came in between and told for ceasefire? Tell something about India's relations with Russia and Israel. Russia was not in a position to intervene and support India. See, the Americans came in the way and they issued some kind of threat that made India stop immediately. I'm not sure what the threat was, but they issued some kind of threat. Now, what can Russia do to prevent the threat from happening? The threat would most likely have been some kind of economic threat, maybe something else also. Can Russia prevent the Americans from unleashing economic warfare on India, for example? Russia can't. So what can Russia do is the question. Russia is not that powerful today. Please understand that. So what if Russia intervened? The question is, can Russia even intervene? And the answer is no. Russia cannot. So that's the reality of life. Our relations with Russia are very, very old, going back decades, and very good relations. They have overall been a reliable partner and a good partner for India. In Israel, we have a more recent relationship, but this is a good relationship. It's based on mutual interests and strategic convergence. So that's also a good relationship, and we should invest in both these relationships. Okay, we are reaching the 3-hour mark. So in case you're trying to put more questions, I would say please stop buying more super chats, because otherwise I will not be able to answer all your questions. So next question is by Kajoro Bitathon. Thoughts on Dr. John Searle's Chinese room experiment that proves that a computer can never have consciousness. Do you agree? I'm not aware of this experiment, but very interesting that when I have super chats, I get all these interesting questions that I'm not aware of. So let me quickly Google this. Dr. John Searle, Chinese room. Interesting. What is this? Let's find out. Chinese room argument. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. The argument and thought experiment, now generally known as the Chinese room. A 1980 article. What does it mean? What does it say? Searle imagines himself alone in a room following a computer program for responding to Chinese characters slipped under the door. He understands nothing of Chinese, and yet by following the program for manipulating symbols and numerals, just like a computer does, he sends appropriate strings of Chinese characters back out under the door, and this leads to those outside to mistakenly suppose that there is a Chinese speaker in the room. So he's following a computer program. The narrow conclusion Searle draws from the experiment is that programming a digital computer might make it appear to understand language but could not produce real understanding. Hence, the Turing test is inadequate. Searle argues that the thought experiment underscores the fact that computers merely use syntactic rules to manipulate symbol strings but have no understanding of meaning or semantics. Okay, very interesting thought experiment. Does it prove that a computer can never have consciousness? No, it only proves that if you're able to produce Chinese characters like a person who understands Chinese, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's come from a conscious source. It doesn't prove that there can be no consciousness ever in a computer. No, I don't agree with that. So this experiment is very interesting. It proves that if you are on the other side of the door and Dr. John Searle is slipping you Chinese characters as if he knows Chinese, it proves that it may not be the case. But it doesn't disprove the possibility of a computer ever having consciousness. So, yeah, these are two different things. Okay, Spade says, why was Shinzo Abe killed? He was moving towards China-Russia camp. Recently, his wife made appearance with Putin. I don't think Shinzo Abe was moving towards the China-Russia camp. Shinzo Abe was a great patriot. He wanted more independence from Japan. He wanted Japan to break free of the American occupation, of the American shackles. He wanted He wanted the Japanese constitution to be amended to give Japan the right to fight war if required. See, the Japanese constitution was written in 1945 by the Americans. And since the day it was written in 1945 until today, not a single word has been changed. That's one of the ways that Japan is enslaved. So he wanted to change the constitution, to amend the constitution, to make it legal for Japan to have a standing armed force and to engage in war as an instrument of national interest. And maybe that's why he was killed. Maybe that's why he was killed. I mean, what happened to his assassin? He the whole thing has been brushed under the carpet, right? Yeah, that's how it goes. Okay, Nomad Hustle says, my 13-year-old nephew needs to start reading newspapers to improve awareness and vocabulary. Hindu Indo-Europeans are too biased. The Indian, okay, sorry. The Hindu is a newspaper. The Indian Express is a newspaper, too biased according to Mr. Nomad Hustle. And Times of India and Hindustan Times are too crass. Any paper with balance, quality, and national interest in mind. I don't read newspapers. I've stopped reading newspapers a long time ago. I have absolutely no idea if there's any paper today in India with balance, quality, and national interest in mind. I gave up on newspapers a long time ago. All just useless. So I don't know. I don't read newspapers anymore. I get all my sources of all my information from online sources, from a vast multitude of online sources. There's no one online source that stands out. So I just don't know if I can give you any answer. I would say consume information from a wide 360-degree perspective online. Newspapers, I don't know. I think newspapers have become a thing of the past. Sorry, I can't give you any direction because I am no longer connected to that world. Sudarshan says, what if most stars turn into black holes that merge into one another? Is that not contraction, blue shift, next stage of Laya concept, as said in Vedas? But why would most stars turn into black holes? Most stars are physically incapable of turning into black holes. Right? Look, there is something called the Chandrasekhar limit, 1.44 solar mass, which is the limit beyond which a star becomes a neutron star. And then there's a higher mass limit beyond which a star will eventually collapse into a black hole. Most stars don't satisfy this condition. So how will most stars turn into black holes? And even if most stars turn into black holes, why will they merge into each other when the universe is expanding rapidly and the expansion is accelerating? Even if they turn into black holes, they will never merge into each other. So, yeah. So interesting thought experiment that you're proposing, sir, but it is not consistent with what we know about the universe. So it's not going to happen. Sorry. Sorry about that. I don't know what Laya concept is in Vedas. Dr. Ritvik Patnaik says, is Sai Sudharshan more talented than Gill and Jaiswal? I'm not watching the IPL, so I don't know. Sai Sudharshan is a left-arm spinner or a batsman? Not sure. I have not watched the IPL. Not sure. Sorry. Phonography says, if Pakistan breaks up and the Taliban takes Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and we take Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, we will be neighbors. Will peace be possible? Should we only take Gilgit-Baltistan, not POK radicals? We should take back whatever territory was ours. Okay, is ours. We should take it all back. And what if we and the Taliban are neighbors? We have no issues with each other. As long as there is no territorial dispute, and as long as we don't interfere in each other's internal affairs, there's no issue. I would like us to be again neighbors with Gandhar and with Persia. Of course, peace is possible. Peace is possible through strength and mutual respect. So we should take back everything that is ours, for sure. Even Lord says, do you see the US as a democracy/republic that's approaching a monarchy or a dictatorship? Thank you. Okay. I see the US as an empire. The US is an empire, and it is an autocracy masquerading as a democracy, because the US is a two-party system, right? Which is just one step above the Chinese Communist Party's one-party rule or North Korea's one-party rule. And when it comes to the US political parties, there are only two that really matter. The others are just there for salad dressing. And the two American political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, they have essentially the same foreign policy and very much the same international policy and international economic policy. It's only in domestic politics that they are different from each other. So essentially, you have a uniparty system masquerading as a democracy. So the US is a global empire and it's an autocracy. That's how I see it. Rudra says, RCB, aka Virat Kohli team, have reached final. Well, I hear that RCB has never won the IPL. So if you are an RCB supporter, maybe this time they'll win. All right. Good to know that. And good for Mr. Kohli. And Rajat Rastogi has donated 6.99. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. And with that, we have come to the end of the super chats. Fantastic. That is it. Rudra says, is this live? Well, it wouldn't be live if I mean, it's live because I've taken your question in real time. Okay, Abhiraj Acharya says, is Sai Sudharshan is an opening batsman. All right. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of today's live stream. Thank you very much, everybody, for all your questions. Okay, there's one more question, apparently. This should be the last one for today. Suranjan Kumar Biswas says, is being a proud Hindu a bad thing in the US? It seems like they don't like us and they preach democracy and human rights. Look, the US is a Christian nation. In God we trust. Which God? The Abrahamic God, the Christian God. It may be technically not a religious nation. Technically, it may not be a religion-oriented nation or a nation with a state religion, but overall, it's a Christian nation, right? And the West doesn't understand polytheism. They used to be polytheists way back. Their culture, their religion was an extension of our religion, the old Indo-European religion. But they lost it a long time ago. It was smashed out of existence by the Abrahamics, and Christianity became a thing. And today, the Americans don't understand. The Americans, the West, the Europeans, nobody understands polytheism. We are the only polytheistic culture that survives. And we are the oldest continuously existing civilization that still exists today. And so being a polytheist is actually seen as a bad thing in a monotheistic or a dominated culture. So being a proud Hindu is even worse. How dare you be proud of being a polytheist? So yeah, the dislike will be there, and it will be usually kept in the wraps, but it will rear its ugly head from time to time. And it's just the way it is. It's just the way their culture is constructed and the way they see things. It's the worldview that they have, that polytheism is evil. It's bad. But yeah, this is the culture this is the country that preaches democracy and human rights while treating people not the same. But that's how the world goes. The world is a web of contradictions. And if a nation is being hypocritical, it means that they are really powerful. So it's a privilege to be hypocrite in the geopolitical world order. All right, everybody, thank you so much for all of your questions. I'm going to end this live stream here. Monday, we begin a new series, Geostrategy with Abhijit Chavda, and it's going to be followed by an Ask Abhijit session once that live stream ends. So I hope to see all of you on Monday, 8 p.m. And I'm going to put out next week's schedule tomorrow. So thank you so much for all the questions, and I will see you in the next live stream, which will happen very soon. Until then, take care, keep raising your standards, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you.